Chapter 2161. His mother seemed to like lotuses very much. Every time she saw a lotus, she would stop and look at it for a long time. Xiao used to live in the side courtyard, but his mother treated her like a treasure. Later, when his mother heard that Xiao was dead, she was sad for a long time. It was obvious that she loved lotuses to a certain extent. This time, if he could carry the lotus out of the cave and give it to his mother, she would be overjoyed. This should be the birthday present he wanted to give his mother. However, the lotus was too big. It was 3 times bigger than him. He was afraid that he could not carry it. Little Nianma's mind was full of thoughts of picking the flower and bringing it home. His 2 little hands rubbed the petals, trying to get more of the flower's fragrance. There was still blood on his little hands. The blood gradually soaked into the petals. The petals that had been closed shook slightly, and a faint white light emerged. Little Nianma was stunned for a moment, and his eyes were wide open. The flower was going to bloom? If such a beautiful lotus really bloomed, would it be more beautiful and fragrant? Little Nianma looked at the flower with anticipation. The only worry in his heart was that if the flower bloomed, it would be bigger, and it would be more difficult for him to carry it. The lotus really showed signs of blooming. The top of the bud had begun to tremble and then stretched out little by little. Little Nianma could not help but hold his breath, but soon he carefully exhaled breath by breath. The smell was too good. He did not want to miss a mouthful. A moment later, little Nianma was stunned again. The flower was obviously about to bloom, but when it was half open, it stopped moving. It even showed signs of gathering, and the fragrance was getting weaker. Oh, why did it stop? It was uncomfortable to be half open. Little Nianma was very uncomfortable. He could not help but go forward. Hey, Xiao, are you not going to open it? Open it, open it. The flower shook. Even a heavenly law stone shook. When a heavenly law stone shook, the whole space shook. Little Nianma was shaken by the shaking. He quickly held on to a crystal pillar next to him to steady himself. What happened? Was it an earthquake? He looked around vigilantly. Fortunately, the space only shook a little, and there was no more movement. He turned to look at the lotus again. His little face was a little gloomy. The half-open lotus was tightly closed again. It was even tighter than before. Is this flower shy? It can't be. Little Nianma pondered for a moment. He tiptoed and approached the flower. His 2 little hands peeled the gap between the petals. Little Yin, bloom. Bloom. The lotus trembled again, as if it was disgusted by him. The heavenly Tao stone couldn't bear to look at it anymore, and all sorts of gibberish appeared on the crystal pillar. The lotus seemed to be connected to little Nianma. The more he wanted to peel it, the tighter the lotus closed. Little Nianma could even feel the force of the closing petals. His strength was not as strong as the closing force of the lotus. Besides, little Nianma was worried that the petals of the lotus would be damaged, so he did not dare to use his full strength. He tried for a while, but to no avail. Disappointed, he took 2 steps back. He sniffed his little hand. The scent of the flower on his little hand was already very faint, as if it had been absorbed by the flower again. This flower was too stingy. She couldn't even bear to leave the fragrance for him. Little Nianma was a little angry and threatened. Xiao Yin, if you don't open up, I will cut you with my sword. He took out the dagger and waved it. Heavenly Tao stone. Oh no, this brat wants to kill his father. Chapter 2162. However, why did it feel so excited as if it was watching a good show? It actually wanted to watch the father and son fight against each other. Of course, the flower was not threatened by him and did not move at all. In fact, little Nianma was not afraid of anything. When he was angry, he dared to cause any trouble and kill anyone. In the past, if there was a flower that was so disobedient, he would probably kill it. However, he did not have the heart to do it now. It was not a good word to destroy a flower. He would rather not do such a thing. His mother said that boys should know how to be gentle with women. He would rather not kill the flower. Little Nianma, tried to reason with it, but as soon as he opened his mouth, the petals retracted even more. He suddenly had an idea. Did the lotus not like this name? That's right. Although it's a flower bud, it's so big. Little Nianma thought for a moment and finally found a suitable sentence. Big Lien, the flower was stunned. The heavenly lost stone had the urge to burst into laughter. The surrounding crystal pillars were full of ha-ha-ha characters. Big Lien, can you open up a little? Let me have a look. Let me have a look. You don't know that I really like lotuses. My mother also likes them. Recently, she has been standing by the lotus pond in Mo Palace for half a day. She even went to the celestial kingdom to get the celestial lotus. However, no matter how beautiful they are not half as beautiful as you. If my mother sees you, she will be very happy. She will be very good to you. Although the lotus still did not move, the petals seemed to be less tightly closed. My mother has been very busy these days. Many people forced her, and she even died once. Later, she was reborn and saved the Devil Kingdom. However, she was not happy. She sleeps so late every day, but she has to wake up so early. There are a lot of things to deal with every day. It is really tiring. It will be her birthday in 10 days. I want to give her a gift to make her happy. Speaking of this, little Nianma was a little sad. I have not seen her really happy these days. She really misses my father. She even called his name in her dreams and cried. The lotus trembled slightly. Delien, mother said that father went to a very, very far place to cultivate in seclusion. She also said that he would only return after a very, very long time. I really miss my father. I feel like he doesn't want me anymore. He doesn't want my mother anymore. Otherwise, why hasn't he come back yet? It has been a long time. Little Nianma began to sniffle. When he was in Mo's palace, even if he missed his father, he didn't dare to show it. He didn't want his mother to be even sadder when she saw it, so he held back his tears. Now that there was no one else in this space other than him, he couldn't help but talk to the lotus flower. Of course, as he spoke, he also touched on his sore spot. He couldn't help but cry as he clung onto the lotus petals. Large teardrops dripped down along the petals. The petals seemed to have been scalded by his tears, and they bloomed slightly. Little Nianma had been paying attention to the reaction of the lotus petals. When he saw the reaction, he was delighted. It seemed like this lotus needed to be watered by his tears. Little Nianma was already good at crying. Coupled with the fact that he was really sad, he murmured while rolling his tears. He looked so pitiful. His voice was getting more and more choked, but the more he talked, the more he described himself as the most pitiful baby in the world. Chapter 2163. The lotus continued to cry as he tugged at it. It showed no signs of opening, nor did it show any signs of closing again. Little Nianma suddenly thought of something. Xiaoyi's mother used to ask him to water it with a drop of blood every day. She said that it would grow stronger. What about the big lotus now? Little Nianma's eyes fell on his hand again. There were still some blood stains on his hand. Of course, there were also some mud stains. He used his little bloody hand to press on the bud just now. So, the bud emitted a circle of white light and was about to open. Perhaps, his blood had the effect of promoting the blooming of the flower. Why did it stop opening halfway? The more he pulled, the more it closed. Lotus was an extremely pure creature. Did it dislike his hands for being too dirty? Little Nianma immediately cast a cleaning spell on himself to make himself feel refreshed. Then he used his fingertip to produce a big round drop of blood. He raised his hand and let the blood drop fall into the half-closed part of the flower bud. This was not ordinary blood. It was the blood of his heart. Although it was only a drop, the effect had always been very strong. When Xiaoyi was dying, little Nianma used this method to make her feel better for a few days. As soon as his blood dropped into the bud trembled slightly. A moment later, it emitted a circle of white light, and the petals slowly bloomed layer by layer. Little Nianma widened his eyes. Everything in front of him was like a slow-motion movie. He looked at the huge lotus bud slowly blooming, and the cold fragrance was getting stronger. The scene when the petals bloomed was very beautiful. It was indescribably pleasing to the eye. Little Nianma crossed his arms and looked at it in a relaxed manner. He wished that he could get a video recorder like what his mother said. He searched around in his storage space but could not find anything suitable. When he looked up again, his eyes suddenly widened as if he was struck by lightning. Amidst the layers of petals that gradually bloomed a person appeared. First, it was the snow-white hair, then the picturesque eyebrows, then the shoulders, and finally the chest. Shin Yinma stood there as if he was petrified. His little mouth was slightly open. He raised his hand to rub his eyes to take a look. Then, he rubbed his eyes again in disbelief. There was a little baby wrapped in the lotus. Moreover, it was an unbelievably beautiful baby. He had snow-white arms and legs that were as white as lotuses, and he was wearing a silver-white dudu that was faintly glowing. His snow-white hair was draped over his shoulders, covering most of his body. The baby's eyes were slightly downcast, and its light red lips were slightly pursed. Due to its beautiful appearance and the fact that it was sitting in the lotus with a belly band and lotus petals covering its front, little Nianma could not tell if it was a boy or a girl. The little child looked less than a year old. His eyes were closed, and he sat there motionlessly. His long eyelashes covered his eyes and face, and one could almost count them one by one. Was this a real person or a fake one? Little Nianma held his breath and took a closer look. The baby's chest rose and fell slightly. It was breathing. It's actually true. It's a real person. Ever since little Nianma was born, he had been wandering around with his parents or wandering around with various mythological beasts. He had never met anyone of the same age as him. Now that he suddenly met one, he was both surprised and delighted. What was even rarer was that this little baby looked to be only about 1 year old, much younger than him. The corners of little Nianma's mouth curled up into a smile. Every child wanted to be an adult, and Shin Nianma was no exception. Chapter 2164. Unfortunately, he was the only child in the Mo Palace. Moreover, he was protected by the 8 mythological beasts. Everyone treated him like a child. Now, he finally found a child who was younger than him. Moreover, judging by his attire, little Nianma vaguely felt that the attire of the child in front of him was very similar to the mythological figure that his mother had told him about. Was this a new gift from his mother? Therefore, he looked at the child and asked, Neza, Hong Hayo, Ginseng baby? The child in the lotus still had his eyes closed. There was no movement at all, just like a small jade sculpture. Could it be that he was mistaken? Was this a nephrite jade sculpture? Little Nianma took a step forward and reached out his little hand, wanting to touch it. His mother said that there was a kind of robot that looked no different from a human on the surface. However, if one touched it, they could still feel it. The child in the lotus looked like a snow sculpture. It was so delicate that it seemed to melt when the wind blew. Little Nianma did not dare to touch it forcefully, so he only touched it gently. He touched the child's arm. Then his lips twitched. The child that looked so real was actually a jade sculpture. It was hard and cold to the touch. It was not as soft as it looked. Little Nianma did not give up. He put his little hand closer to the child's nose. A moment later, his little hand fell down. The child was not breathing. It seemed that the jade sculpture was too real. Coupled with the light in the crystal cave, he actually thought that the child was breathing. The strange stone, the strange crystal cave, the strange crystal-like lotus, and the strange jade doll in the lotus. Little Nianma was a little disappointed. He still hoped that the child was real. Just when he was disappointed, there was a slight cracking sound behind him. He turned around and was surprised. Behind him, there was a door that had split open. When he was sucked in, he could not find any way out. Now, the door suddenly appeared. In other words, he could go out. Little Nianma turned his head to look at the boy in the lotus again and had an idea. Could this child be a mechanism that could lead him out? No, it was not just a mechanism. All the energy in the crystal cave was concentrated in the lotus, and all the energy in the lotus was concentrated in the jade doll. Perhaps this jade doll could also cultivate into a human being. However, it lacked an opportunity. Little Nianma suddenly remembered that his blood seemed to be very effective. He immediately ran back to the lotus flower and stood on a crystal platform that was as tall as the lotus flower. He looked down at the child from above. Little Nianma looked like he was 3 or 4 years old, but the baby in front of her was less than a year old. Even if he stood up, he was still half a head shorter than Nianma. What's more, this little kid had been sitting the whole time. Little Nianma looked down at the baby and felt that the angle was perfect. The little baby remained motionless, as cold as jade. Little Nianma pondered for a moment. His face was full of smiles as he spoke to the baby kindly. Baby Heavenly Tao Stone. Ha ha! The Heavenly Tao Stone's comments were all over the cave's crystal pillars. As for the child, although he did not move at all, not even his eyelashes moved, he seemed to have stiffened for a moment. Fortunately, his movement was very subtle, so little Nianma did not notice it. Little doll, the fact that you and I can meet today proves that we are indeed fated. Chapter 2165. Little baby, we are destined to meet today. I like you very much. You should be able to become a spirit soon, right? You're just one step away. Just like the person who painted the dragon. As long as the eyes are painted, the dragon will become real and fly for thousands of miles. What I'm going to do today is to give you the finishing touch. I'll give you some essence blood. If you can turn into a human, then you'll be my baby. You have to listen to me. I'm going to take you home, give you new clothes, and play with you. The duty you're wearing is too revealing. When I was your age, I didn't even wear open crotch pants. As he spoke, he forced another drop of blood from his fingertip and reached out to the boy. He wanted to press the blood on the boy's forehead. However, his hand froze in midair. The boy, who had his eyes closed, suddenly opened his eyes. The pair of eyes were as blue as the sea and as deep as the lake. Under the reflection of the crystal, there was a cold gleam flashing. The eyes fell on little Nianma, but no emotion could be seen. Little Nianma was caught off guard and was shocked. He staggered and fell off the crystal platform. The crystal platform was quite high, and little Nianma fell backward. Although he might not be injured, he was confident that there would be a big bruise on the back of his head. A white light flashed across the ground and wrapped little Nianma in it. Then, it carried him and flew out. A moment later, little Nianma stood in the crystal hall with a confused look. The inconspicuous big, white stone was still in the same place. It was as if the colorful crystal cave, the lotus, and the boy were just a dream. Was he sent out? Or was it all just a daydream? It should not be a dream, right? How could a dream be so real? Did he violate the taboo inside and was sent out? The little doll was actually alive, and it was so beautiful. The moment he saw her, he felt a sense of closeness. He wanted to get close to her and hug her. No, he had to go in again. No matter what, he had to bring the little baby out and let his mother see the baby that he found. Little Nianma began to wander around the big white stone. However, he could not even find a crack, let alone a door. Naturally, he did not give up and began to hit the white stone with his hands. Hey, let me in. Let me in. White stone naturally had no reaction. Little Nianma did not give up. He circled the big stone a few times and even touched the white stone with his little hand again. However, the miracle did not happen again. How could he be willing to give up? Unwilling to give up, he took out the dagger again to threaten her. However, after he repeated all the actions he had done before entering the white stone no longer opened its arms to him and let him in. Little Nianma stopped cursing and sat down on a crystal platform. Did he do something wrong? He just wanted a child to play with him. That way, when his mother was busy, he wouldn't be so bored. He obviously wanted to treat the little kid well and even wanted to give him his childhood clothes to wear, but the little kid obviously didn't appreciate it and actually threw him out like this. Was the little kid a stone fetus? It was just like how he was raised in the red stone, but he had parents. Did this kid have parents? He jumped up again and hit the white stone. Hey, little guy, you're not born with a stone fetus, are you? Do you have parents? I can take you to find your parents. Chapter 2166. Hey, don't ignore me. I really want to play with you. You must be very lonely here by yourself, right? I'm quite bored, too. There are no other children to play with me. Can we play together? Can you let me in again? Just once. By the way, you look a little familiar, a little like me. No, you look a little like my father. Everyone, please forgive little Nianma's poor eyesight. In his eyes, his father had always been high and mighty. He was as indifferent as the clouds in the sky and as elegant as the wind in the mountains. Naturally, He would never have thought that his father would look so cute and even wear a doo-doo. Although Sean Julie had turned smaller in front of him, it was when he was 7 or 8 years old. The appearance of 7 or 8 years old was very different from when he was less than a year old. If not for the comparison, it was almost impossible to tell. Besides, the current Sean Julie did not want his son to recognize him. His temperament was very different from before, so little Nianma could not recognize him. Little Nianma walked around the white stone and tried his best to persuade it. However, his mouth was dry, and the white stone was still too lazy to respond. In the end, he was anxious and seemed to have thought of something. "Oh, right. My mother is the best at breaking wizardry barriers. She must have a way to open this stone. I will go and find my mother to help me now." At this time, he finally remembered his mother. After a few words, he turned around and wanted to run away. Suddenly, the white stone behind him emitted a faint white light. Little Nianma subconsciously turned around and then widened his eyes. A line of words appeared on the white stone. "Do not tell anyone about this." Was this a warning from the little boy? It seemed that the little boy did not want anyone to know his whereabouts. However, little Nianma clenched his little fists and arrogantly raised his eyebrows. He threatened, "Since you are not willing to let me in and play with me, I will tell someone else. Tell my mother." The white stone said, "Listen to me, and I will give you a surprise in 9 days." Little Nianma's eyes lit up. After all, he was still a child. All children like surprises. Little Nianma asked, "What surprise?" The white stone answered, "You will know when you come." Little Nianma replied, "Can I visit you on a regular basis?" White stone paused for a moment. "You can come once every 3 days." White stone reminded him again, "Remember, don't tell anyone, including your mother. A good boy should keep his promise." Okay. Little Nianma agreed without hesitation. Even children would want to have their own private space. Although the baby in the stone was strange, he was very fond of little Nianma. Therefore, he was willing to share a little secret with him. Moreover, this secret was harmless. White stone added another line of words. "Go up, your mother and the others are looking for you. If anyone asks, you can say that you used the earth-burrowing technique to escape into the crevice underground." This white stone was actually teaching him how to lie. Little Nianma looked at it. A good child will not lie. White rock. White lies are fine. Little Nianma was speechless. "All right, you won't hurt my mother, right?" White rock. Of course not. Little Nianma was still worried. "Swear." White stone. "I swear." Little Nianma was finally relieved. He smiled and squinted his eyes. "Well, I will come to see you in 3 days. You still have to talk to me." White stone. "Okay." This little boy was really a man of few words. Not a word more. Chapter 2167. Little Nianma wanted to confirm with him again, but another line of words appeared on the white stone. "Your mother is worried." The short words were like a heavy hammer, and little Nianma suddenly realized what was going on. Yes, when Luo Jiuchen caught him, he accidentally triggered the alarm on his body, and it must have alerted his mother. He had not gone out for a long time, and his mother must be worried sick. Little Nianma no longer cared about anything else. He turned around and ran up the path he came from. The path led to the surface. Although the end of the path was sealed, little Nianma could go up by using the underground drilling technique. He ran for a while and occasionally looked back. Suddenly, he was shocked. The crystal path behind him disappeared as he ran, and it directly turned into an ordinary rock layer. If the crystal path disappeared, how could he come back in the future? Little Nianma wanted to run back and ask again, but the path had disappeared, and he could not go back. However, since the child promised to see him once every 3 days, there should be another path waiting for him after 3 days. Finally, he ran to the end of the path. It was the hole that he had fallen into. While he was thinking about using the underground drilling technique to go up, a faint red light suddenly flashed from the side of the hole. A woman came out from the wall of the hole. "Mother!" Little Nianma saw the woman and rushed directly into the woman's arms. The woman was Ning Xiuema. She was looking for her child crazily. Not only did she search all the big and small palaces in the Mo Palace, but she also did not let go of the underground. She personally used the underground drilling technique to go back and forth in search of the child. Just when she was about to lose all hope, she did not expect to find her son here, safe and sound. The moment Shen Yinma threw himself into her arms, her whole body froze. Then, she raised her arms and hugged the child tightly into her arms. She hugged him tightly, as if she was hugging a lost treasure. Shen Yinma almost could not breathe. "Mother!" Shen Yinma looked up from his mother's arms. The hole was just an ordinary hole, so even if it was dark, Shen Yinma could still see his mother's appearance. She looked like she was in a sorry state. Her hair was disheveled, and her body was dirty here and there. Her face was extremely pale, but her eyes were shockingly bright. Her body trembled slightly, but she suppressed her emotions and asked her son in a hoarse voice, "Where did you go just now?" She had searched this place earlier and had also seen this natural cave. However, she had searched both inside and outside the cave, but she did not see her son. But now, he had suddenly appeared here. Shen Yinma remembered the promise he made with White Stone, so he did not dare to tell the truth. He only answered vaguely. The gist of it was that he had been chased by Luo Jiuqin, and in a moment of desperation, he had used the earth-burrowing technique to escape underground. Because he was afraid of being caught, he kept dodging until he accidentally bumped into a rock. He was a little dazed from the collision and was stuck in a crack of the rock until now. There were no loopholes in his words, and Ning Xiuma didn't doubt him. She calmed herself down and checked her son's body to make sure that there was nothing wrong with him. Only then did she heave a sigh of relief. Then she took her son upstairs. "Shun Julie, why don't you want to acknowledge your son? Look, your son misses you very much. Yet, you hardened your heart and refused to acknowledge him. You are so cruel. I always thought that you had not woken up. It turns out that you have been awake for a long time. TSK, TSK. You have been staying in the bud for so long." Chapter 2168. Haha, my son called me little baby, and he was referring to you as the supreme being. Ha ha, what a joke. If this were to spread, I would be the biggest joke in the 6 realms. Ha ha, he even wants you to be his baby. Shunjuli, you actually used my body to talk to your son. This is a great disrespect to the Heavenly Tao. In the Crystal Cave, the Heavenly Tao Stone was happily chatting with Shun Juli on the lotus seat. Shun Juli closed his eyes and ignored it. Hey, why don't you say something? Can you not be so boring? Your son is quite talkative, unlike you. He's more like his mother. That little girl's mouth can poison people to death. By the way, that little girl seems to have been waiting for your return. Since you've already woken up, why don't you go and see her? She'll probably go crazy with joy when she sees you. A few days ago, she even came to the Fanteon Palace to scold me. Shun Juli, who was sitting on the lotus seat, opened his eyes. His eyes were dark, but no one could tell what he was feeling. This person had never revealed his emotions. The Heavenly Tao Stone had known him for so many years, so it knew his personality very well. Trying to guess his thoughts from his expression was undoubtedly a fool's dream. The Heavenly Tao Stone almost wanted to shake its head, but it couldn't help but send another message. I know you can't go out yet, but you can let your son pass a message to her. At the very least, she won't be worried. It didn't want that little girl to scold it behind its back. It felt like it was sneezing. Shun Juli still didn't say anything. He closed his eyes and continued to cultivate. He had to recover as soon as possible. The Heavenly Tao Stone muttered to itself for a while. Then, it suddenly thought of something. Don't tell me you don't want her to see your current appearance. Are you afraid that she'll laugh at you? Haha, your current appearance is indeed quite shameful. You're even smaller than your son. No wonder your son calls you little baby. The Heavenly Tao Stone was overjoyed again, and it sent another message. The message it sent was actually in Shun Juli's mind. Shun Juli finally said, "Shut up, Heavenly Tao Stone." After spamming here for so long, all she got in return was these 2 stiff words. She was a little disheartened. The Divine Lord's temperament was still the same as it had been for tens of thousands of years. It did not talk to it easily. The crystal cave finally quieted down. After a long while, the Heavenly Tao Stone couldn't help but write another line of words. I really feel that since you're a baby, you should be more lively to have more vitality, which suits your current appearance. Look at your son. He's alive and well now. Of course, Shunjili did not respond to its complaints. After a while, the heavenly lost stone brushed again. Oh, right. Why did you ask your son to come and see you once every 3 days? What kind of surprise do you want to give him 9 days later? Will you be able to fully recover by then? This time, Shunjili finally replied, why don't you make a guess? Heavenly Tao, stone, it didn't want to talk to this person anymore. Otherwise, it would be angered to death. Little Nianma was severely injured. The person who injured him was none other than his mother. When he returned to the ground, little Nianma realized that the Mo Palace had been turning the world upside down to look for him. The Mo Palace was already busy, and it was even busier now. Everyone's rhythm was disrupted. The main reason for this was that little Nianma did not listen to them. When he came out, Bai Zhe, one of the 8 mythological beasts, was with him. Chapter 2169. The main reason was that little Nianma was not obedient. When he came out, Bai Zhe, one of the 8 mythological beasts, was supposed to follow him. However, little Nianma did not want to be followed everywhere, so he made up an excuse to send Bai Zhe away first. That was why he was in danger in the garden. Since the child had been found, everyone was naturally relieved. Ning Xiuma strengthened the wizardry barrier above Mo Palace a few more times. Even the 8 mythological beasts followed suit. It would be even more difficult for Luo Jiuchen to sneak in again. As for little Nianma, Ning Xiuma almost wanted to give him a beating, but she could not bear to do so. In the end, he was punished by being locked in a small dark room. The 8 mythological beasts personally guarded the room. He was not allowed to come out until he finished copying the 8 scripts. It was the first time that little Nianma saw his mother so angry at him. He felt a little wronged. Although it was called a small dark room, it was actually a study room. There was a table and a stool in the study room, but there was no bed. Even if he did not sleep, it would take him 4 days to copy the 8 scripts. In fact, copying for a few days was not a big deal. The key was that he could not go to the baby in the white stone. With the 8 mythological beasts watching, he could not sneak out at all. He had to accept his fate and copy. He had to finish as soon as possible so that he could find the baby as soon as possible. He copied for a whole day. His wrist was sore, and he was so sleepy that his upper and lower eyelids kept fighting. Children were always sleepy. Now that he was copying something so boring, he could not help but feel sleepy. Unknowingly, he fell asleep on the table. Ning Xiuma was busy until midnight. She did not return to her bedroom, but went directly to the study room. Bai Zhe, who was waiting for her, reported, "The young master has been very obedient today. He has been writing and writing. He did not rest at all. He has just fallen asleep." This kid probably knew that he was wrong. How could he be so obedient? Ning Xiuma was relieved. She asked Bai Zhe to rest while she walked into the room. Her heart ached when she saw her son lying there, sleeping soundly and drooling all over the floor. Although her son had caused a lot of trouble this time, it was not entirely his fault. Such a young child was at the age where he wanted to play. However, because of Luo Jiuchen, she had trapped her son in the Mo Palace and had people following him everywhere he went. Naturally, the child would be annoyed. It was naturally uncomfortable to sleep on his stomach like this. Ning Xiuma carefully carried him up and casually conjured a big, soft bed and placed his son on it. Even if the kid was asleep, he knew that a big bed was more comfortable than a table. He immediately rolled on the bed and fell asleep again. Ning Xiuma looked at the notes he had copied. They were horizontal and vertical, and he had copied them very carefully. However, she also found little Nianma's doodle on the table. Perhaps little Nianma was still too young to show any talent in drawing. There was a flower on the paper. Was it a flower? Ning Xiuma tried to figure it out with uncertainty. A few large semicircles with lots of embellishments represented the overlapping petals. Even the heart of a flower was represented by a big circle. There seemed to be a person standing on the center of the flower. That person also had very simple lines. For example, The head was represented by a circle. The lines drawn on the circle represented the hair. The body was even simpler. 4 curved lines were drawn on an oval, which should represent the torso and limbs of this person. The 4 lines were twisted together. This should be meditation, right? Or was he practicing some kind of kung fu? Chapter 2170. Ning Xiuma looked at the flower and the twisted figure and could not help but laugh. Little Nianma was quite imaginative. Naturally, she would not take the scribbles of a child to heart, so she put it back on the table. A gust of wind blew and flipped the paper over. Ning Xiuma then realized that there were words on the back of the paper. The words were written by little Nianma, and they were quite neat. Ning Xiuma was baffled by the few words he wrote on the paper. The words on the paper were, "Big lotus, little lotus, baby." Ning Xiuma's lips twitched. Big lotus, little lotus? Was it possible that the kid did not draw a flower, but a lotus? He even gave it a name. She looked at the little figure again. Was this the baby that he mentioned? Was this brat trying to say that copying this here was as boring as a child sitting on a lotus? Oh, he could actually draw a stream of consciousness. Ning Xiuma could not help but laugh. Her eyes fell on a vase on the table. A lotus was blooming in the vase, and its fragrance was overflowing. Ning Xiuma stared at the lotus for a moment, and the smile on her lips dimmed. Almighty, our son is really smart. If something really happened to him this time, not only would I be sorry to you, but I would also not be able to live. She closed her eyes slightly. The whole Mo palace was following her lead. She could not be weak. No one knew how tired she was, and no one knew how scared she was when she could not find her son. However, there was no one for her to lean on. In the past, Shunjili was her strong support. Now, no matter what happened, she had to face it alone. Her hands and feet were still cold until now. Almighty, when will you come back? When will you come back? Her mind flashed with the look on Shunjuli's face when she jumped into the black hole as a sacrifice. He almost swore that if he was reborn, he would never fall in love with her again. He was almost crazy at that time, but she had to do it. Did he hate her so much that he refused to be reborn? Countless speculations were rolling in Ning Xiuma's mind. The pen in her hand was suddenly broken by her unintentional pinch. She didn't seem to feel the bamboo thorns piercing her palm. After a while, she sighed softly. Great God, even if you don't love me anymore, I still hope that you can be reborn. Quickly be reborn. I just want you to live. It doesn't matter if you love me or not. The familiar pain in the depths of her heart rose again. She closed her eyes and waited for the pain to pass. Baby. Little Nianma, who was sleeping soundly, suddenly turned over and mumbled a few words. Accompany me. I am bored. Ning Xiuma was stunned at first, and then her heart felt as if it had been grabbed by someone. She felt that she had overlooked a problem. Her son was already so big, but she had never bought him any decent toys. It was mainly because this brat's usual behavior was too precocious, so no one would think of buying him that kind of thing, for example, rattles, dolls, and some educational toys. When she was pregnant with him, she did buy some, but it was a pity that those things were already destroyed. She thought about it for a moment. Although she could now easily use her magic to create a few dolls, she always felt that the things made with magic were not so honest. She felt guilty for her son, so she wanted to go out and get a few toys for him. She called Qiangqi and Tongxi and asked them to stay and look after the child while she went out in the night. Chapter 2171. It was the middle of the night, and it was an eventful season. Most of the shops were closed. However, the underworld was the opposite of the other realms. The later it was, the livelier it was. Ning Xiuma went to the market in the underworld this time. The underworld was dark all year round, and it rained from time to time. Therefore, the abnormal weather in the 6 realms did not affect the people in the underworld. Even the strange red rain was like normal rain in the underworld. It was not destructive. Red lanterns were hung high on the streets, and the people were surging. At first glance, one would think that they had arrived at a famous ghost street in the capital. Recently, Ning Xiuma's name was very ostentatious. Even her appearance was known throughout the 6 realms. She only wanted to buy a few toys for her son this time. She did not want to attract attention, so she changed her appearance and became a young man in a green robe. She could not change the snowflake-shaped cinnabar mole on her forehead, so she changed it into an ordinary round shape. In this way, she wandered around the streets twice and did not attract anyone's attention. She especially visited toy shops, probably because the underworld was full of energy all year round. Most of the things sold were colorful. The cloth dolls sold were either flirtatious or strange. They looked a little like the dolls burned for the dead in the human world. It was a little eerie. Although her son was brave, Ning Xiaoma did not want to buy a ghost doll to accompany him. It was better to find something that looked more sunny. She went to several famous shops in the underworld, but she did not find a suitable one. She was disappointed. Maybe the style of the underworld was like this. It seemed that she was destined to go home empty-handed tonight. She should take some time tomorrow to look at other places. She did not buy a suitable toy for her son, but she accidentally heard a piece of gossip. Recently, the underworld was relatively peaceful compared to the other 5 realms. However, there was a disturbance recently. Children often went missing in the city. It was said that the first ones to go missing were the homeless children on the streets. The underworld was poor, so there were many homeless children. The disappearance of a few homeless children did not attract attention at all. People just felt that there were fewer homeless children on the streets recently. They could not see them all the time, but no one cared. It was not until a few days ago that children from normal families began to go missing that people started to notice. The parents of the children who went missing reported it to the authorities. The authorities also sent out officers to search everywhere, but there was no news. Those children went missing completely, and not even a piece of their clothes could be found. Until now, 8 children from normal families had gone missing, not counting the homeless children. While Ning Xiaoma was wandering around the main street, she coincidentally bumped into a mother who was crazily looking for her child all over the street. She was calling out her child's nickname, and her voice had almost changed pitch. And Ning Xiaoma heard the gossip. And the parents of the day, of course, of the children of the day, and the of the day, they would come out to look for their children to eat, and of the month of the day. But recently, after the news of the children disappearing frequently spread, the adults no longer dared to let the children out to play. Even if they insisted on going out, the adults would follow them. Just now, the mother who was looking for her child was in the same situation. Her child was used to running around outside. These few days, he was so uncomfortable at home that he insisted on coming out. Chapter 2172. As a mother, she had no choice but to take him out. They just walked around the street and looked at some beautiful jewelry. When she turned around, she found that her 5-year-old son was gone. Ning Xiaoma frowned slightly. She was also the mother of a child. She could empathize with the pain of losing a child. She hated human traffickers the most in her life. In modern times, she usually killed one whenever she saw one. This time, she just wanted to buy some toys for her son. She didn't expect to encounter such a case. This case was a bit strange. Although human traffickers had existed since ancient times, the underworld was different from other worlds. There was no such concept as men were superior to women. There were 3 kinds of unfilial, and having no children was the worst. So, there were very few people who sold children. Even if there were human traffickers, they mostly liked to sell women. Now, there were only 2 possibilities for a city to suddenly lose so many children in such a short time. First, a group of human traffickers was rampant. They stole the children and sold them to other worlds. Second, someone wanted to use the children to practice some evil martial arts. But the first possibility was not very likely. Because the children of the underworld had an body, it was not suitable for them to marry people from other worlds. They had no children after marriage. No one from other worlds was willing to buy the children of the underworld. Even if the children of the underworld were sold, no one would buy them. So, there was only the second possibility left. Ning Xiaoma's heart suddenly beat wildly. Luo Jiuchen was practicing a kind of evil martial arts now, and his whereabouts had been a mystery recently. She had sent out so many spies, but no one had found him. Since he was hiding now, it meant that his evil martial arts had not really been completed. He was still practicing it. So, was the sudden loss of so many children in the underworld related to him? She was standing there thinking. Then, she heard a tinkling sound from afar. The sound was crisp, sweet, and as beautiful as the sound of nature. She looked in the direction of the voice and saw a child running over with a hop and a skip. Ning Xiuma's eyes lit up. The child was holding a doll in his hand. This doll was different from the style of the netherworld. It was carved out of white jade and was about the size of a 3-week-old baby. It had smiling eyes and looked as festive as the Methriao Buddha. There was a silver bell hanging from the white jade baby's arm and neck. As the baby ran, the silver bell jingled. Her son would definitely like this kind of doll. Ning Xiumo remembered her purpose for coming here. Her heart was filled with joy. She immediately stopped the child and asked him where he bought the white jade doll from. The child pointed at the end of the street. There's a newly opened jade shop there. There are many dolls in there, all kinds of them, and they're all very cheap. Ning Xiumo was overjoyed and walked in the direction the child was pointing. Xiaobao, run slower. A woman ran over from the other end of the street and caught up with the child. She reprimanded him unhappily. Be careful not to be kidnapped. The child giggled. How could she let her mother hold her hand? She ran forward like a wisp of smoke. No one kidnapped me. I won't be bored if I have this doll with me. The mother and daughter gradually went away. Ning Xuan naturally heard the movement behind her. She couldn't help but shake her head. It seemed that there were still many children who liked dolls, regardless of gender. Her son was not an exception. She finally found a shop. The shop was not big and looked very inconspicuous among the rows of shops around it. Chapter 2173. Ning Xiumo walked in and discovered that the interior was filled with white jade dolls. These dolls were of different shapes and sizes, but each one was exquisitely carved and lifelike. Under the illumination of a lantern light, each one of them appeared as round as pearls and smooth as jade, making people want to hug and kiss them. Ning Xiumo fell in love with these dolls as soon as she saw them. The boss sitting behind the counter was a middle-aged man with a sallow complexion. He looked listless, but when he saw a customer coming in, he cheered up a little. Ning Xiumo looked around the shop. The decoration inside was quite shabby. Other than the wooden shelves that held the white jade dolls, everything else was very inconspicuous. This showed how poor the boss of this shop was. Ning Xiumo picked up a jade doll and looked at it carefully. This jade was a little strange. It was not like any jade she had seen before. There was a light pink in the snow-white jade. It felt warm and moist in her hand, like the skin of a baby. It was very comfortable. These jade dolls had silver bells hanging on them, and each of them could make a different sound. When they were shaken, the silver bells would make a crisp, tinkling sound, which was breathtaking. Ning Xiumo asked about the price. The boss rolled his eyes and looked at Ning Xiumo. He stretched out 2 fingers and said, 200 taels for one. Ning Xiumo raised her eyebrows. Boss, do you sell by looking at people? Just now, a child bought one here. It was only 20 copper coins. The boss lowered his eyelids again. I sell goods to people who are fated. In my shop, it is only 20 copper coins for a child and 200 taels for an adult. To think that he was really someone who sold goods by looking at people, and even said it so openly. He was a very proud and artistic boss. Ning Xiumo played with a doll and asked casually, these dolls are beautifully carved. 200 taels for one is not expensive. Is this your own craftsmanship? The boss looked dispirited, but he was too lazy to talk. So what if it is beautiful? Not many people in this place can recognize it. Do you want to buy it or not? If you don't want to buy it, then get out. He actually gave the order to leave. No wonder the shop was so quiet. It turned out that the boss had a weird personality. Since I've chosen them, of course I'll buy them. Ning Xiumo chose 2 dolls. I'll take these 2. She placed them on the counter. Help me wrap them up. However, the boss didn't move. Each person can only buy one. Ning Xiumo, what a weird boss. Boss, I have 2 babies at home. At least one for each of us, right? Ning Xiumo bargained with him. The boss did not give in at all. Adults can only buy one. You can let the 2 children do it themselves. then I'll give you one for free. Ning Xiuma. What a weird boss and weird rules. Ning Xiuma had no choice but to give up one and ask him to pack only one. Boss, how many dolls have you sold? Ning Xiuma asked casually. The boss took the doll and took out a carving knife. He looked up at Ning Xiuma and asked, "How old is your child? How many months and days has he been born?" Ning Xiuma raised her eyebrows. Boss, why are you asking this? The boss said, "Isn't it more sincere to carve his birthday? Your child will like it more." This reason sounded very reasonable. Ning Xiuma casually told him a date. The boss carved the date of birth on the back of the white jade doll with a carving knife. Then he put the doll into a wooden box and wrapped it up. Chapter 2174. Sure enough, the shopkeeper used a carving knife to carve the birth characters on the back of the white jade doll. Then he put the doll into a wooden box and wrapped it up properly. This doll has spiritual energy. After I carve the characters on it, the spiritual energy will be even more abundant. It's best for the child to open it and play with it. He handed the box to Ning Xiuma. This set of words was very similar to those magical tools that were bought from magical tool shops. Monks and Taoists would say a few words, and then they would be considered to have been blessed. Ning Xiuma picked up the box, turned around, and walked out. The habits of the underworld were similar to those of the legendary vampires. Whenever the sun rose, it was time for them to rest. The red lanterns on Ghost Street were extinguished one by one. The red lanterns of the Jade Shop were also extinguished. The door of the Jade Shop was also closed. Although the sun did not rise, it was still daytime. There were no more bustling people on the street. Occasionally, one or two people would pass by in a hurry. The whole city seemed to have fallen into a deep sleep. It was very quiet. Ning Xiuma actually did not go far. She had been patiently hiding in the dark, observing the shop. In total, 4 children entered the shop. Without exception, they all carried out a white jade doll. Other than the 4 children and the 4 parents accompanying them, no one else entered or left the shop. After the sun rose, the jade shop closed for business. Ning Xiuma did not notice anything strange. It seemed that her previous suspicions were unnecessary. Strange. Was this shop really a normal shop? Ning Xiuma took the white jade doll out of the box. Under the sunlight, the doll smiled innocently. The white jade was dizzy, and there was nothing strange about it. She had already turned the doll over and over several times, but she did not see anything wrong with it. With her martial arts, even if there was a trace of evil energy on it, she would still be able to sense it. Was she thinking too much? Ning Xiuma thought about it. She simply turned invisible and went through the wall to enter the shop. The shop was very quiet. The dolls on the shelves stood there quietly. She went to the back and saw a gloomy wooden coffin. The lid of the coffin was half open, and there was snoring sound coming from inside. Looking inside, he saw the weird shop owner sleeping there. He had obviously fallen asleep. 9 out of 10 people from the underworld liked to sleep in coffins, so Ning Xiuma didn't find it strange. She shook her head. It seemed that she was overthinking things. She thought that the dolls in this shop were related to the case of the children in the underworld. She flashed out of the room and looked at the dolls on the shelf. She found another one that she had taken a liking to and put it in her arms without hesitation. Because she had her suspicions, the doll she bought did not have her son's birth characters carved on it, but her own. It was the day when she was reborn in this continent. Since there was nothing strange about this doll, she decided to buy a new one for her son. Of course, she still abided by the rules of business. Before she left, she threw another 200 taels of silver on the counter. Not long after she went out, the boss in the coffin suddenly sat up slowly. He looked in the direction of the outer room and raised the corner of his lips, revealing a rather evil smile. Originally, he was born with an ordinary face. He was the kind that could not be found in a crowd. However, under this smile, there was a kind of romantic and elegant feeling. He stood up from the coffin and stepped out. His body was slightly stiff, but after moving a few times, he returned to normal. He sighed softly. This skin is really uncomfortable to wear. Chapter 2175. As he spoke, He raised his hand and moved the coffin aside. There was another coffin underneath. However, this coffin was yellow in color, which was the same color as the ground. It was buried underground. If he didn't move the coffin above, he wouldn't be able to find the coffin below. The shop owner looked down at the person sleeping in the coffin and let out a sigh of relief. Suddenly, his body withered and fell to the ground. The person in the coffin slowly opened her eyes and stood up gracefully. She stretched her arms and legs, and her long eyelashes fluttered. My own body is still more comfortable. His features were elegant, and his purple robes were like the first rays of sunlight. Astonishingly, he was the person Ning Xiuma couldn't find, Luo Jiuchen. He stepped out of the coffin and pressed the coffin above it back down. Then, he put the shop owner's body back into the coffin. He did this skillfully. Apparently, it wasn't his first time doing this. He walked out of the shop and looked at the dolls on the shelf. He smiled silently. He picked up the 200 taels of silver on the table and sniffed it. It was as if he was smelling something he liked. After a long time, he opened his eyes and kissed the silver. Little Xiuma, I really like you, but you always want to kill me. It's so sad when I think about it. Although Ning Xiuma had used a technique to change her appearance, she could only fool an average person. If she wanted to fool an extremely important person like him, it would be very difficult. Little Xiuma, you'll be mine sooner or later. Since you're a devil, then I'll accompany you in becoming a devil. We should be a real couple. There will be a time when we meet normally, but now is not the time. He muttered softly. He smiled again and used a spell to draw an array formation on the ground. He sat in the middle of the array formation and made a hand seal to chant an incantation. After a long time, there was a soft knock on the door. He stood up with a smile and opened the door. Outside the door, a 6- or 7-year-old boy was standing, looking at him with a blank expression. "Good boy, come in." His voice was gentle. He held the boy's little hand and walked into the shop. The door of the shop closed automatically, and a gust of wind blew along the path the child had taken, leaving no trace behind. Even the hounds with the best sense of smell would not be able to find this place based on the scent of a child. A moment later, a strange groan came from the shop, as if the owner was in extreme pain but couldn't make a sound because his throat was cut. A moment later, the shop returned to normal as if nothing had happened. Inside the shop, a faint black smoke came out from the crack of the door and then disappeared. When Ning Xiuma returned to Mo Palace, the sky was already bright. She first went to check on the child and found that the little fellow had already woken up. Unexpectedly, he did not wait for anyone to urge him and was earnestly copying the book. It was unusually worry-free. She pinched the white jade doll in her arms. She originally wanted to give it to her son, but after thinking about it, she decided against it. I'll give it to him 2 days later as a reward for his hard work in copying books. She stood outside the window and watched for a while. Bai Zhe happily reported to her. Little Master woke up in the middle of the night to copy books. He is so hardworking. Ning Xiuma looked at her son's thin arms and legs. He was too thin before, and until now, he still hadn't recovered. There was not much meat on his body. She thought for a while and turned to the kitchen. Chapter 2176. While little Nianma was busy copying, he suddenly smelled the fragrance of food. He looked up and saw his mother walking in with a tray. There was a bowl of fragrant porridge and a few delicious dishes on the tray. As he was punished, he was still a little angry. He pursed his lips and continued to write without looking up. Was the little guy angry with her? Ning Xiuma was a little amused. Her son had always been very considerate, and this was the first time he was angry with her. Ning Xiuma wanted to hold the little guy in her arms and coax him, but a loving mother would only spoil her son. Since he was being punished, she did not want to coax him. Therefore, she put the food on the table and said calmly, "Eat first. You can write after you are full." "I'm not hungry." Little Nianma's voice was stiff, and he still did not look up. Oh, the little guy was still stubborn with her. Ning Xiuma looked at the side of his face and was in a trance. Her son looked a little like his father when he was young. Ning Xiuma thought of the 9 Supremes in the Tianshu Mountain. The past was like smoke and it felt like a lifetime ago. The familiar tingling in her heart rose again, and her eyes were wet. She shook her head to stop herself from thinking about it. She wanted to talk to her son, but now the 6 realms were in an eventful period. There were too many things to be done. She had been sleeping in the middle of the night for the past few days, and she was already tired. In addition, she had been running around in the underworld for the whole night. At this moment, she felt even more tired and wanted to go back for a little rest. She did not say anything but turned and walked out. Little Nianma was stunned. He thought that his mother would coax him when he was angry. He did not expect that she would just turn and leave. He pouted and wondered if his mother did not love him anymore. He looked at the food on the table and frowned. Because of the grievance in his heart, he was not hungry. Little Nianma was quite picky when it came to food. If it was not to his taste, he would rather not eat it. The dishes on the table were not to his taste. Only the porridge smelled better, but it was not necessary to eat it. He thought about it and decided not to eat it. He called for Bai Zhe, who was outside, and asked him to take the food away, saying that it was inconvenient for the smell of books to be mixed with the smell of rice. Bai Zhe frowned. Young master, the Devil Lord personally, well, I know that she's sent here personally, but I have no appetite. Little Nianma argued, and then put the tray in Bai Zhe's hand. Have you not eaten yet? I'll give it to you. Bai Zhe, the little fellow was very determined. Bai Zhe didn't want to waste the food, so he had to take the food out. He ate a few mouthfuls and vaguely felt that something was wrong. The dishes were fine, but the porridge seemed to have a sweet and fishy smell. He didn't think too much about it and finished the porridge and dishes. Among the 8 great divine beasts, the tongue snake was a famous chef. These days, the young master and the demon lord's meals were all cooked by him. When Soaring Snake came to change shifts, Bai Zhe half-teased it. Your cooking skills seem to have deteriorated. The porridge that the Devil Lord sent over just now reeked of blood, and the dishes tasted a little salty. The tongue snake shushed him. I didn't cook the food. The Devil Lord cooked it herself. She said that her son was too thin, so she wanted to add some nutrition to him. She seemed to have used some of her own blood. You don't know that the Devil Lord is omnipotent, but when it comes to cooking, she has no talent. It took her more than 2 hours to make these dishes and porridge. She even had to redo them once to make them like this, but they still taste bloody and a little salty. Chapter 2177. Bai Zhe was speechless. He knew that the Devil Lord's flesh had always been the best tonic, but he did not expect that. What should he do now that the porridge had gone into his stomach? The flying serpent suddenly thought of something. Hey, how did you know that the porridge had the smell of blood? Did the food taste salty? Did you lick the plate? Bai Zhe glared at him. You are the one who licked the plate. You are the one who licked the plate. The flying serpent was speechless. Bai Zhe ignored the flying serpent's confused face and only said, Go and prepare another serving. The young master will be hungry later. The little guy was still growing, so it was better for him to eat more nutritious food. The flying serpent was there to take over his shift. He looked at Bai Zhe and said, Aren't you tired after staying up all night? I am here to replace you. Bai Zhe said with a rough voice, Go and prepare the food. I don't need you to replace me. Staying up all night is nothing. Our Devil Lord stayed up even longer. She has been very busy these days, and she did not sleep at all last night. He turned around and saw little Nianma standing at the door, looking at them with his eyes wide open. Did Mother cook the food herself? The flying serpent looked at Bai Zhe and then at little Nianma. He nodded carefully and said, Yes. Did she not sleep last night? Was a meeting? Little Nianma continued to ask. Bai Zhe shook his head. I'm not sure. The Devil Lord wanted to stay here last night to guard you, but she suddenly remembered something and came out again. She asked me to guard you while she went out of the palace. She only came back this morning and came here directly. Hey, young master, where are you going? Little Nianma had already run away. I'm going to see my mother. Little Nianma ran to the Devil Lord's bedroom and saw Ning Xiuma and General Manager Heimu walking out together. Something must have happened outside. Both head steward Heimu and his mother had grave expressions on their faces. His mother was probably very tired. Her eyes were bloodshot. Both of them were in a hurry, so they did not see little Nianma hiding in the bushes. Soon, they were far away. Little Nianma, who was behind them, only heard a few words. Was there anything unusual when the Emperor's celestial emperor went missing? Didn't he have 8 strong guard around him? That's what's strange. The celestial arch disappeared from his own palace, and I didn't hear any signs of him struggling. The experts around him thought that he had finally fallen asleep. I'm afraid it's Luo Jiuchen again. Quickly send someone to the celestial world to investigate. Is there any news from Yi Tianli? No, the enemy is in the dark, while I am in the light. If Luo Jiuchen wants to hide, it won't be easy to find him. Ning Xuema seemed to think of something. By the way, Hey Mu, send someone to the underworld today to investigate. Recently, the underworld has been losing children frequently. Perhaps it has something to do with Luo Jiuchen's evil arts. The two of them discussed as they left. Little Nianma came out from the bushes and pursed his lips. He was afraid that Mother would only sleep for a short while before she woke up to deal with so many things. She would be so busy that her feet wouldn't touch the ground. He still failed to live up to his mother's good intentions. Little Nianma felt a little guilty. Without hesitation, he ran back to the study room to copy the book. At night, Ning Xuema finished dealing with the matters at hand. It was already midnight. First, she went to see her son. When she saw that he had already gone to bed, she was relieved. She did not want to disturb her son's sleep, so she went back to her own bedroom. She was so tired that she did not even have the energy to cast a cleaning spell. She climbed on a bed and fell asleep. Perhaps it was because she had been staying up late recently, so she was particularly easy to get tired. Chapter 2178. Perhaps it was because she had been staying up late recently, but she was particularly tired, especially today, when she almost fell asleep during the meeting in the hall. Her mind was blank. She was sleeping so soundly that she did not notice the 2 white jade dolls that she put in the storage space slowly slid out. Right next to her pillow, one of them was glowing faintly, as if the doll was smiling. As for the other doll, it was the same as usual. There was nothing unusual about it. The next day, when Ning Xuema woke up, she only felt that her head was buzzing. She was still tired after a good night's sleep. She looked in the mirror and saw the dark circles under her eyes. She could not help but rub her eyebrows. She was indeed too tired these days. However, there was no other way. Luo Jiuchen was obviously practicing evil magic. She had to find him before he finished practicing and seal him. Yes, she could only seal him. Without the poison of heavenly water, she could not kill him at all. However, she still lacked 2 pills to make the poison of heavenly water. These 2 pills were extremely difficult to find. She secretly sent people to ask all the well-known pharmacists in the 6 worlds, but they all said that they had never heard of it. It seemed that these 2 pills were not in the Celestial Devil Continent. Unfortunately, the Celestial Devil Continent was a dead land. People could only enter but not leave. The people in the Celestial Devil Continent could not leave at all. Therefore, she did not think about the poison of heavenly water for the time being. Fortunately, she knew how to activate the bell of Heaven Dao. When the time came, she would find a way to seal Luo Jiuchen. She had a vague feeling in her heart. If she did not get rid of Luo Jiuchen soon, she was afraid that the 6 worlds would be in a bloodbath again. Perhaps it would be worse than the Purple Evil Disaster 50,000 years ago. The Purple Evil Disaster 50,000 years ago was the result of Miao Fan practicing the evil magic taught by Luo Jiuchen. Miao Fan, who was originally an ordinary person, became so powerful after using the evil magic. If Luo Jiuchen directly practiced it by himself, Ning Xuan almost did not dare to think about the consequences. Perhaps she should take the initiative. However, how could she make Luo Jiuchen show up? This was a very troublesome problem. Ning Xuema rubbed her eyebrows again. After thinking about it, she strode out. Not long after she went out, little Nianma ran in with a big red fruit in his hand. He picked it in the garden and wanted to give it to his mother as a gift. Because of this, he deliberately got up early, but he didn't expect that he would still be a step late. His mother had gone out again. He was a little disappointed. He walked around the palace and accidentally found two white jade dolls lying on the inside of his mother's quilt. The two dolls were all smiles, and they looked very adorable. Shinyama fell in love with her at first sight. He picked up one of the dolls and found a few words on its back. Although it was written in an ancient language, little Nyenma's cultural background was not bad, so he could recognize it very quickly. This seemed to be the date of his mother's rebirth. Shinyama looked at the doll with the word engraved on it, and then looked at the one without the word engraved on it. Both dolls were equally adorable. However, Shinyama did not particularly like it. After all, he was a boy. In his eyes, dolls were only for girls. He preferred things like knives, swords, and spells. If he had to choose a toy, he would be more interested in a kite. As for dolls, little Nyenma carefully looked at the two dolls side by side on the bed. Both dolls were very beautiful. They were wearing belly bands, one red and the other blue. There were silver bells on their wrists and ankles. Chapter 2179. Little Nyenma played with the silver bell on one of the dolls. Although the two dolls were beautiful, they were not as beautiful as the doll in the white doo-doo that he saw in the white stone. Why did his mother put two dolls on the bed? Did his mother like to play with dolls? Well, his mother was also a girl. Perhaps she really liked to play with dolls. Little Nyenma pondered seriously. He was worried about his mother's birthday present in a few days. Now that he saw the dolls, he seemed to have found a direction. He fiddled with the two dolls. The red doo-doo doll was engraved with words, but the blue doo-doo doll was not. He suddenly had an idea. Were the two dolls a pair? Did the red doo-doo doll represent his mother? Did the blue doo-doo doll represent his father? The more he looked at it, the more he felt that it was the case. Mother also misses his lord father, right? She does not show it. Little Nyenma suddenly felt a little sour in his nose. He raised his hand to rub his nose and put the two dolls back into the quilt. Then he ran out. He also wanted to give his mother two dolls, which were 100 times more beautiful than these two dolls. After he ran out, Baizé was standing outside dutifully. He had not left little Nyenma's side for the past few days. He only waited patiently outside when the little guy came to the bedroom to look for his mother. The great devil's bedroom had a very strong wizardry barrier. Entering the bedroom was like entering a safe. It was very safe. Therefore, Baizé was very relieved. After the two of them left, the quilt on the bed shook slightly. The red doo-doo doll slowly poked its head out. It did not seem to have changed, but its eyes seemed to be shining. Swoosh! A red light came out of nowhere and hit the red doo-doo doll. The red doo-doo doll trembled and stopped moving. The light in its eyes gradually disappeared. It seemed that nothing had happened. Another day had passed. In the middle of the night, Ning Xuemo returned to the bedroom. When she opened the quilt, she saw the two dolls lying side by side. She was stunned for a moment and frowned. She clearly remembered that she had put these two dolls in her storage space. How did they come out on their own? Could it be? Her fingers landed on the two dolls, and she used her telekinesis to scan them, but she didn't find anything. She stared at the two dolls in a daze for a moment. She had already sent several high-level spies to the underworld to investigate the missing children. Of course, she had also investigated the shop that sold the dolls. The underworld was still losing its children, and the circumstances were all strange. Some children were clearly playing at home, but in the blink of an eye, they disappeared into thin air. Some children would walk with their parents on the streets. As they walked, they would suddenly stumble, fall, and disappear. It was impossible to guard against such a method of losing a child. The people of the underworld were now in a state of panic. Everyone kept a close eye on their children, but they still couldn't prevent their children from going missing. As for the shop that sold dolls, there was nothing out of the ordinary. Just like the other shops, the owner opened at night and closed at dawn. Moreover, the boss was a loner and didn't like to go shopping. One of the spies had been there for a whole day, but he didn't see anything wrong with the boss. More importantly, the children who bought the dolls did not go missing. All of them were alive and kicking. The ones who were missing were the other children. Chapter 2180. Based on all the signs, the Jade Doll shop had nothing to do with the missing children. Ning Shuama pinched the bedboard and squinted her eyes. Was she being paranoid? However, her keen sixth sense told her that there was something wrong with the shop. Now that she saw the two white jade dolls, Ning Shuama felt even more suspicious. Perhaps she should go there again to check it out. She got on the bed and pushed the two dolls to the corner of the bed. Then, she fell into a deep sleep. A dreamless night passed. When Ning Shuama woke up, it was already morning. She leisurely got up and leisurely folded her quilt. Then, she saw that the two dolls that she had pushed to the side of her bed were now lying on the side of the bed, less than a foot away from her pillow. She curled her lips slightly and casually grabbed the two dolls and threw them into her storage space. Little Nianma finally completed the task after copying the books for 4 days. He felt that he was almost cross-eyed. Everywhere he looked, there were only words. However, at least he completed the task with quality and quantity. Immediately, little Nianma took his achievement to his mother to ask for praise. Ning Shuama seemed to finally have some free time today. She actually had time to accompany her son for lunch. She even prepared a big table of dishes as a reward. Little Nianma took a look at the dishes. They were all his favorite dishes and they smelled great. However, these dishes were obviously made by the flying snake. It was not like the other day when his mother personally cooked for him. Unfortunately, those dishes were taken advantage of by Zhe. He was afraid that his mother would not cook for him in the future. Little Nianma rubbed his nose and could not help but look up and ask, "Mother, I think the porridge and dishes that you sent to me a few days ago were quite delicious." Ning Shuama picked up a dish for him and said calmly, "You didn't eat the porridge and dishes that day and gave them to Zhe, right? How do you know if they're delicious?" Little Nianma was speechless. He did not expect his mother to know about this. He blushed and lowered his head. "Nianma didn't know. I didn't know that it was made by my mother. If he had known in advance, he would have stuffed it into his stomach. After all, making his mother cook was more difficult than making the sky rain red." Ning Shuama raised her hand and rubbed her son's head. She knew how good she was at cooking, and whether it was the color or the aroma, it was not as good as Tang Xi's cooking. Since her son was growing, she naturally wanted to give him the best and most delicious food. However, since her son wanted to eat her cooking, she would practice her cooking skills in the future and cook a few more meals for her son. "Mother will make more for you in the future. Eat these first. Look at how skinny you are." Ning Shuama picked up a big poor shoulder and gave it to him. Little Nianma began to eat happily. His mother was too busy, so they rarely had the chance to eat together. Little Nianma cherished this opportunity very much. After dinner, little Nianma had just cleaned his hands when his mother conjured a big doll out of thin air. She handed it to him and said, "Come, Nianma, you have done well this time. Mother will reward you." Little Nianma was speechless. It was a super cute doll with big eyes and a small mouth. It was chubby and soft to hold in one's arms. Why did his mother suddenly give him this? Little Nianma looked at the big doll that was almost as tall as him and was a little puzzled. Chapter 2181. He blinked his eyes and looked at his mother with a puzzled expression. Was the child so happy that he became silly? Ning Shuama stuffed the doll into his arms and said, "Don't you like dolls? You can hug it to sleep when you are bored." Little Nianma was even more confused. He scratched his head and said, I didn't say that I like dolls." "You didn't say it, but you said it in your dream." Ning Shuama could not help but laugh. She did not want to expose her son's lie. "All right, Nianma, you can play with this first. I will buy you other dolls in the future." Since it was a gift from his mother, little Nianma naturally accepted it. However, he was still a little puzzled. If his mother thought that he liked dolls, why didn't she give him the two white jade dolls? The two dolls were indeed his mother's private collection, right? His mother really liked to play with these dolls. Little Nianma was proud of his conclusion. "Nianma, I have to go out tonight and will only be back in about 3 or 4 days. You have to be obedient in Mo Palace this time. Don't go out of the palace, don't." Ning Shuama said 4 or 5 times in a row. Obviously, she was worried about her son. Every time she wanted to go out, she would remind him a few times. Little Nianma's ears were almost calloused from hearing it, so he simply agreed. He would not go out of the palace, nor would he run around, but he had to see the doll in the white stone. When it was almost evening, little Nianma made up an excuse and said that he wanted to play in the garden for a while. He asked Baizé to wait for him outside the garden. He wanted to have fun in the garden. Baizé also felt that the little master had been copying books for the past few days and was really bored. It was good to let him have some fun in the garden. Since Luo Jiuchen came once, Mo Palace had strengthened its security. The wizardry barrier around the palace was like an iron wall. Even Luo Jiuchen could not easily enter again. Of course, to be safe, Baizé carefully walked around the garden in advance to make sure that there was no abnormality. Only then did he feel assured to let the little master be alone in the garden. At this moment, little Nianma was standing near the entrance of the cave. He was still very nervous. The passage had been automatically sealed. Could he still go in this time? Just as he was about to squat down and pat the ground cracked open the moment he stood up. Once again, little Nianma went deep into the ground. Looking at the familiar crystal passage, little Nianma smiled and ran all the way forward. Soon, he arrived at the crystal hall. "You're late." A few words appeared on the large white rock, with a hint of reproach. Little Nianma was out of breath. "I was punished. I only got my freedom today." "Why were you punished?" Little Nianma did not know why, but he trusted the stone from the bottom of his heart. Therefore, he told him the reason. Of course, he also briefly explained the situation outside. The stone was silent for a moment before it said, "You should be punished." Little Nianma remained silent. He thought that he would be comforted by white stone. He didn't expect to receive such a sentence. However, little Nianma had always been optimistic. Although his heart was hurt, he was still in high spirits. "By the way, Big Lien, can you let me in to see you again? Have you grown taller these days?" White stone. Inside the white stone, the heavenly law stone was crazy. "Ha ha, Big Lien, it seems that your son has recognized this name." The boy on the lotus seat was slightly taller than before. Chapter 2182. The boy on the lotus seat was slightly taller than before. Although he still looked like a baby, the aura between his eyebrows was very strong. He looked up and glanced at the place where the heavenly law stone was spamming. "Aren't you afraid that I will destroy your crystal?" The heavenly law stone was speechless. It did not dare to continue spamming. Shinjuli's eyes fell on a crystal ball. The crystal ball clearly reflected the figure of little Nianma. He did not see him for 4 days, and he seemed to be a little fatter than before. He no longer looked like a little monkey. His 2 big eyes were shining, and he looked very much like his mother. He raised his hand and pointed his finger at the empty space. Then, a line of words appeared on the white stone that Shun Nianma saw. "Call me Lord Lien." When he heard his son call him Lord Lien, he wanted to slap him away. Shin Nianma pouted his little mouth. "Lord Lien? How old are you to call me Lord?" "Little kid, you can't be too anxious. If you want to call me Lord, it should be me who calls you Lord first." Shinjuli was speechless. The heavenly law stone said, "Ha, ha." Shinjuli certainly did not want to argue with this kid about these insignificant issues. He was not concerned about this at the moment. The location of the heavenly law stone was not as shallow as little Nianma thought. The crystal hall was at least a few thousand feet above the ground. Therefore, even if someone used the Earth Escape technique to check the underground of the Mo Palace, no one would be able to find this place. The reason why little Nianma could come was that the heavenly law stone did not go easy on him. The heavenly law stone was well hidden, but because it was hiding its tracks, it also restrained its telekinesis and spiritual power. In this place, the heavenly law stone could only sense the aura on the ground of the Mo Palace. It could not sense anything from other places. Therefore, he did not know what was going on above. Ning Xiaoma had not been in the garden for a long time. He had not even sensed her presence for 4 to 5 days. He thought about it and used the appearance of the heavenly law stone to talk to his son. Of course, he did not speak. The so-called conversation was only the lines of words that appeared on the heavenly law stone. Shinjili did not talk much. Fortunately, little Nianma was a talkative person. He answered almost every question that was asked, So Shun Julie understood a lot of things. After all, little Nianma was still too young. He was not very clear about the situation outside, so he could only tell them what he knew. However, Shun Julie managed to capture a lot of useful information from his scattered words. For example, the red rain outside, the disappearance of the immortal generals, the disappearance of the celestial arch, and Ning Xuema's tiredness. The heavenly Dao stone had a rough idea of what was going on. So Luo Jiuchen has really gone mad. Shun Julie didn't say anything. That person's heart wasn't in the right place. It was only a matter of time before he turned into a demon. Once he turned into a demon, there would be a fatal flaw in his body. He would no longer have an immortal body. Little Nianma continued to ask, "By the way, do you have parents? Don't tell me you're this rock that has become a spirit." "No, it's not." Whitestone's words were very concise. "Sigh, then you're such a poor baby. You probably haven't experienced the feeling of love from your parents." Little Nianma immediately sympathized with him. Shun Julie was speechless. Indeed, he had never experienced the feeling of love from his parents. At first, he did not think much of it. Now, he suddenly felt that it was indeed a little lacking. The heavenly Dao stone seemed to have sensed something. It eagerly wrote a line of words. "In fact, you don't have to feel regretful. I can love you in the future." Suddenly, it could not write the rest of the words. There was a small crack on its crystal screen. Chapter 2183. The heavenly law stone was speechless. It finally shut its mouth. In fact, it feels good to have parents who love you. You can always act like a spoiled child in front of them. Everything that they do is for your own good. Little Nianma continued to talk about the benefits of having parents. Finally, he concluded, "A child with a mother is a treasure. A child without a mother is like a weed." Shun Julie lifted his sleeve and wrote a line of words on the white stone. "Does your mother love you very much?" "Of course. It hurts so much. Yesterday, she personally cooked delicious food for me. She even used her own blood to make porridge. Unfortunately," little Nianma sighed at the end of his sentence. "Unfortunately what?" "Unfortunately, I didn't get to eat the delicious food. I was angry with her at that time. I didn't know that it was her cooking, so I deliberately didn't eat it. After she left, I gave the food to Bai Zhe." Shun Julie was speechless. His eyes flashed with a touch of sharpness. It had been a long time since he tasted the food that she cooked. Bai Zhe, that bastard, was lucky. Bai Zhe, who was outside the garden, suddenly shuddered. It looked around suspiciously. Who was scolding it? In the crystal hall, little Nianma sat on a piece of crystal and negotiated with the white stone. "By the way, can you give me 2 of the best quality crystals?" The white stone asked. "Aren't you surrounded by crystals?" Little Nianma shook his head. "The crystals outside are not pure, and they are not the best quality. What I need this time is the best quality crystal. It is the best thing for my mother." Shun Julie asked, "You want to give the crystal to your mother?" The girl indeed liked shiny things and liked to collect jewelry. It turned out that even her son knew about this habit. Little Nianma nodded. "Yes, it will be my mother's birthday in a few years. I want to give her a crystal doll. She will like it very much." This was the main purpose of little Nianma's visit. Shun Julie asked, "A crystal doll? Why a doll?" He thought that little Nianma wanted to give his mother a crystal ball or a crystal hair accessory. He did not expect it to be a doll. "My mother is a girl. She likes dolls very much," little Nianma said. Shun Julie, how did you know? Why didn't he know that she had this hobby? "My mother has a pair of white jade dolls. They are both very beautiful. One of them was a boy, and the other was a girl. They were wearing doo-doo, and they looked very cute." Little Nianma shared his discovery. Shun Julie, little Nianma took a look at the white stone. "Oh, by the way, not only are the baby's eyes and eyebrows beautiful, but the belly band is also beautiful. One red belly band and the other blue belly band. They look better than the belly band you are wearing." Shun Julie, little Nianma, was excited. "I guess that the doll must have a special meaning. The girl probably represents my mother, and the boy represents my father. She probably collected this pair of things because she missed my father." Shun Julie was speechless. He looked down at the silver doo-doo he was wearing. There There was no trace of blue on it. The heavenly Tao stone carefully wrote a line of words. You're a white doo. It seems like that boy doesn't represent you. Shut up. Shinjuli did not look too good. Recently, the heavenly Tao stone seemed to be eager to see him make a fool of himself. From time to time, it would try to figure out his thoughts. The heavenly Tao stone was satisfied and did not speak anymore. It felt that it had guessed the truth, which was why this person was so angry. Chapter 2184. Outside, little Nianma could not stop talking. The two dolls even have silver bells on them. They jingle when you shake them. They are very pleasant to the ears. My mother loves them so much that she puts them on the bed. However, Shun Julie's expression turned serious. Nianma, can you tell me the features of the baby? Little Nianma was surprised. How do you know that my name is Nianma? Shun Julie said, Good boy. Tell me the details. Little Nianma looked at the word good boy that flashed on the white stone and was a little speechless. He felt a little awkward to be called good boy by a little guy who was younger than him. Hey, I'm older than you. You can't say good boy to me. I should be the one saying that to you. Little Nianma was serious. The heavenly law stone almost wanted to burst into laughter again, but it held back. It was rare to see the divine lord being annoyed by his son. It was also a strange scene. It wanted to see how Shun Julie would refute his son. It waited with great interest. Unexpectedly, Shun Julie did not care about this at all. He simply said to little Nianma, Get to the point. Little Nianma was speechless. Why did he feel that the person who talked to him in the stone was not the dolls, but his father? He did not want to listen to the stone, but he did not know why he felt an instinctive sense of closeness to the dolls and the stone. Moreover, the stone was talking to him in such a serious manner. Perhaps there was something strange. Therefore, little Nianma described the appearance of the two dolls in detail. He had a good memory and eloquence, so he described them very clearly. Shunjili looked more serious. After a moment of silence, he asked, What time is it now outside? Little Nianma estimated. It should be around 5 o'clock. Shunjili immediately said, The two dolls are a little strange. Bring them to me, and I will help you take a look. Little Nianma was shocked, but he was still a little doubtful. What is strange? Shunjili did not want to scare the child, so he did not explain. Bring them to me, and I will know. Little Nianma was also worried that the two babies would harm his mother, so he immediately turned and ran away. He went out of the back garden and ran into Bai Zhe, who was anxiously looking for him in the garden. When he saw him running out, Bai Zhe face-palmed. Little ancestor, what did you do in there? This subordinate called you several times, but you didn't respond. Little Nianma answered vaguely, I am playing inside. By the way, where's my mother? Bai Zhe sighed. I was just about to tell you this. The Devil Master has already left. He's worried about you, so he sent a voice transmission to me. Before he could finish his sentence, little Nianma had already run away with his two short legs. I'm going to Mother's chamber to have a look. The little guy was really impatient. Bai Zhe shook his head. He was still worried, so he followed them. Hey, where are they? Little Nianma had almost turned the entire palace upside down, but he still could not find the two dolls. He had clearly seen them on the bed. Could it be that his mother had put away those two dolls? He rummaged through the cabinets for a long time, but he still couldn't find the two dolls. Did his mother bring them with her? He thought for a moment and ran out again. He grabbed Bai Zhe's sleeve and asked, Where is my mother? Bai Zhe did not understand why he was so anxious. The Devil Master has gone to the underworld. It is a little strange there. The Devil Master has gone to check it out. This matter should not be disclosed to the public. Young Master, you should not tell anyone either. Chapter 2185. Bai Zhe did not understand why he was in such a hurry. The Devil Master has gone to the underworld. There is something strange there. The Devil Master should go and check it out. It is not appropriate to tell anyone about this. Young Master, you can't tell anyone. He took the opportunity to remind him. Before he could finish his sentence, the little guy had already run far away. Bai Zhe could only see the back of his head. Young Master, where are you going? Bai Zhe had no choice but to chase after him. Bai Zhe, I'm going to the garden to play for a while. Don't disturb me. Little Nianmao ran to the garden and closed the door behind him. Zhe was speechless. What was wrong with the little guy today? He was very strange. However, he knew that children often did things on impulse. There was not much reasoning to be done. As long as the little guy stayed in Mo Palace, he would be relieved. If he wanted to play, he could play for a while. My mother probably took the dolls away. I have searched the palace for a long time, but I could not find them. Little Nianmao ran back to the crystal hall and said while panting. In the crystal cave, Shun Julie's heart sank. Where did your mother go? Is she not in Mo Palace? Little Nianmao shook his head. When he was about to tell the truth, he suddenly remembered Zhe's words. Although the white stone saved his life, its origin was still unknown. What his mother did was a secret, so he could not simply say it. He pursed his lips and looked at the white stone. She has been very busy recently. She often goes out. I don't know where she has gone. Shun Julie looked at his son's little face in the crystal ball in the crystal cave. After all, the little guy was too young to be good at lying. After a few words, his little face was a little red. He pondered for a moment. It was not easy to gain the child's trust in a short time without exposing his identity. As for the two dolls, he was indeed worried. What was so strange about the two dolls? My mother's kung fu is quite good. If there is something strange, she should be able to detect it. Little Nianmao still wanted to know more. However, when he said that, he saw a whirlpool appear on the white stone. Then, he was pulled into the crystal cave by a mysterious force. Little Nianmao was speechless. He stood up straight and rubbed his eyes. He looked at the doll sitting on a lotus and said, "You have grown again." It had only been 4 days since they last saw each other, but the child had grown up quite a bit. When she saw him 4 days ago, he looked less than a year old. Now, he looked like he was 2 or 3 years old. He was almost the same age as little Nianmao. This time, the baby didn't wear a tutu. Instead, he wore a small silver robe and sat there like a Buddhist statue. Shinjuli really didn't want to face his son in this state unless he had no other choice. If his son recognized him, he would lose all his dignity. Which father would be willing to let his son see him wearing a tutu? He had already made up his mind. Once he recovered, the first thing he would do was to erase his son's memories of this period. He beckoned to his son. "Come here." Although his voice was dignified, it was still a tender child's voice. Little Nianmao looked at him cautiously. "What are you doing? Why was this brat suddenly so cautious?" Shun Juli looked at him and said, "Nianmao, if I wanted to harm you, I could just lock you up here. You don't have to be so cautious." Little Nianmao thought about it and agreed with what he said. However, Chapter 2186. He always felt that he should not trust someone so easily. His mother always said that people's hearts were sinister. Some people seemed to have a good temper, but they often plotted against others behind their backs. However, the little boy in front of him should not be like that, right? Little Nianmao had experienced so many things since he was young, so he did not trust people easily. However, since he saw this little boy, he inexplicably wanted to trust him and even wanted to be close to him. Shunjili looked at his big black eyes and slowly said, "Nianmao, I will never hurt you and your mother. If I'm not wrong, the two dolls should be witchcraft dolls. If you carry them with you, your mind will be unknowingly controlled. It will be very dangerous for your mother to go out alone." There was an inexplicable power in his voice. Little Nianmao widened his eyes. But my mother should know about the witchcraft dolls. Even he had heard of it, so it was impossible that his mother did not know about it. This voodoo doll is different from normal voodoo dolls. Normal voodoo dolls carry evil aura, but this voodoo doll can remove the evil aura. If it is not activated, no one will notice anything unusual, Shun Julie explained to his son. He reached out to little Nianmao. "Come and sit next to me. I will tell you in detail." Little Nianmao was not afraid that he would play tricks. He climbed onto the lotus seat and sat next to Shun Julie. The lotus seat looked soft and comfortable, but when he sat down, he felt as if he was nesting on a piece of ice. It made little Nianmao shiver. Shun Julie seemed to have realized that his son could not stand the cold. He raised his hand and pulled a lotus petal to turn it into a futon. "Sit on this." Little Nianma pulled the futon under his buttocks. He was still anxious about what happened just now. Is the doll really so powerful? Then, will my mother be very dangerous? Shunjuli said, So, Nianma, you have to tell me where your mother is so that I can think of a way. Little Nianma pursed his lips tightly. He really wanted to trust him, but he was afraid that he would really hurt his mother. He paused and said, Then, you have to swear that you will not harm my mother. Shunjuli did not hesitate. I swear. Little Nianma stretched out his hand again. Pinky swear. Shunjuli was speechless. He was defeated by this kid's sudden caution. However, it was a good thing that his son was so cautious. He didn't want to be betrayed by others. He reached out his hand and made a pinky promise with his son. This was the first time he had done this, and it felt a little strange. The heavenly Tao stone looked as if it had been struck by lightning. He even forgot to refresh the screen. Little Nianma finally let out a sigh of relief after making a pinky promise with him. We have made a pinky promise, so we are friends, right? Shunjuli paused for a moment, then smiled calmly. Yes. We are friends. We are friends. The heavenly Tao stone. It sent out a bunch of exclamation marks. It turned out that even the supreme divinity could be so shameless. Little Nianma finally told her where his mother had gone to, the underworld. Shunjuli frowned slightly. The two dolls were originally varying creatures. Now that she had gone to the underworld, he was afraid that she would be more easily controlled by that thing. Nianma, do you have something to contact your mother? Yes, I do. It is specially made. Shin Nianma took out a golden red amulet. This is it. However, my mother told me not to use it casually. She told me that I can only use it to contact her when I am in trouble or danger. Chapter 2187. She said that as long as the directed audio spell is lit up, she will answer it no matter when or where she is. Shunjuli took the amulet from him and slightly sensed it. His thin lips slightly pursed. That little girl was really willing to sacrifice everything for the sake of her child. She actually used the blood from her heart to condense such an amulet. This amulet was not only connected to the amulet on her side, but also to her heart. Once Shun Nianma used this amulet, her heart would immediately sense it. Even the Forbidden Land could not prevent this feeling. However, this amulet was connected to her heart. Every time it was used, it would cause her heart to ache. No wonder she did not let little Nianma use it easily. Shin Nianma was worried about the safety of his mother. Is my mother really in danger? Can I use this to call her back? I can pretend that I am in great danger. He came up with a bad idea. Shunjuli immediately rejected it. No need. Do you have an ordinary directed audio spell with you to contact her? Shin Nianma was dejected. No. He was a talkative person and liked to pester his mother. Therefore, every time Ning Shuama went out for business, she would not give her son any direct audio spell to contact her. She did not want him to talk to her on the phone and delay her important matters. However, to be on the safe side, Ning Shuama had left a directed audio spell with Shin Nianma to contact him. She could contact Shin Nianma, but Shin Nianma could not take the initiative to contact her. Shunjuli pondered for a moment and understood the purpose of Ning Shuama's arrangement. Looking at his son's dejected face, he could not help but raise his hand to touch his head. It's okay. With this direct audio spell, we can roughly locate her position. However, Shin Nianma's hair stood up when he was touched. He shook his head and avoided his hand. Don't touch me. He felt strange being touched by a child who looked younger than him. Shunjuli ignored him. With a flick of his finger, the one-way voice-transmitting spell landed on a crystal pillar. Locate her location. Let's hurry over. Shin Nianma was stunned. Who are you talking to? Shunjuli said indifferently. That stone can directly go to the underworld. Shin Nianma was confused. Which stone? What you're looking at is a white stone. Aren't you two one? No. Shunjuli was obviously unwilling to talk about it. Shin Nianma was even more confused. Suddenly, he had an epiphany. I know. It is your mother. You are its baby. Shunjuli was speechless. He really wanted to kick this guy off the stage for making such random deductions. The Heavenly Tao Stone was originally very unhappy. It had been staying here for a long time and didn't want to move. Not to mention going to the netherworld. The heavy energy in the underworld was not conducive to its recovery. Just as it was about to refute Shun Juli, it suddenly heard Shun Juli's words. A series of ha-ha-ha appeared. This kid is too talented. You actually thought you were my son. However, this stone is a male. Shun Juli glanced at it coldly. How could a stone differentiate between male and female? The Heavenly Lost Stone had enough fun, so his mood was much better. The one-way communication spell kept spinning on the crystal pillar. After a while, the directed audio spell fell back into Shun Yinma's hand. The Heavenly Tao Stone could not communicate directly with Shun Yinma, so it spoke to Shun Juli instead. I have already checked. She's not in danger now. She may not be in danger in the underworld. Chapter 2188. The Heavenly Lost Stone could not communicate with Shun Juli directly. Instead, it spoke to Shun Juli. I have checked her condition. She is not in danger now. She may not be in danger in the underworld. After all, the girl has cultivated the body of Buddha and devil. She's immune to all evil. The two voodoo dolls should not be able to harm her. Why don't we wait here? If something happens to her, I can sense it through the spell. It will not be too late to rush over then. Besides, this place is a rare place for you to rest. It is very beneficial for your recovery. You should stay here for a few more days. What it said was very reasonable. Shun Juli pondered for a moment. How long will it take for you to get to the underworld from here? The Heavenly Lost Stone said, an hour at most. Shun Juli frowned. The Heavenly Lost Stone continued. Besides, your kung fu has not recovered. If she is really in danger, you can't help her. It is better to rest for a few more days. The faster you recover, the safer you will be. You can't leave the nourishment of my spiritual power now, so... Shun Juli interrupted it. It is okay. I will not leave this lotus platform unless it is a last resort. The Heavenly Lost Stone was happy. It thought that it had convinced him. Unexpectedly, Shun Juli changed the topic. As far as I know, there's a crystal mine in the deepest part of the underworld river. Let's go there first. The Heavenly Lost Stone was speechless. It was exasperated. Maybe nothing will happen to her. Maybe she will come back after a round in the underworld. Won't we be wasting our time? Although it was a stone with legs, it should not be treated as an errand boy. Shun Juli looked indifferent. There is a blood-red crystal at the bottom of the underworld river. The Heavenly Lost Stone immediately perked up. Okay, we will listen to you. We will go to the underworld too. The blood-red crystal was a rare gem. Its function was 10 times better than the best crystal. If it went there, it only needed to find a few blood-red crystals to replenish its energy and recover faster. Shun Yinma did not know how the little kid communicated with the Heavenly Lost Stone. When he was about to pull the little kid's sleeve to ask, the space suddenly shook. He was caught off guard and almost fell from the lotus platform. Shun Juli grabbed him. Guard your Yuani, guard your sea. It was a series of words. Shun Yinma's eyes were wide open. How do you know the kung fu that my father taught me? I will tell you later, but do it first. Shun Juli had an air of authority about him. Even though he looked like a kid, his aura was still strong. Shun Yinma was shocked. He had a lot of questions in his mind, but at this time, the space was shaking and spinning violently. He felt as if he was an ordinary person sitting in a flying carriage. He was dizzy and had no time to say anything. Following Shun Juli's instructions, he immediately meditated and focused on his lower abdomen. However, before he could stabilize his body, he suddenly remembered something. We are going to the underworld, right? But I have not told Bai Zhe. He is still waiting for me outside the garden. If they find out that I am missing, they will probably look for me again. Shun Juli only replied with 2 words. It is okay. He gently pinched his fingers. An invisible ray of light flew out. Bai Zhe was waiting outside the garden board. Suddenly, it felt the ground under its feet as if there was an earthquake. It was shocked. Chapter 2189. Baizé was waiting outside the garden in boredom. Suddenly, it felt a tremor under its feet, as if there was an earthquake. It was afraid that something bad would happen to little Nianma, so it immediately called out, "Young master, young master." The tremor disappeared, but the young master did not respond. Baizé was worried and quickly ran into the garden. After looking around, it could not find the young master. It could not help but feel anxious. Occasionally, it looked up and suddenly saw a white light flashing on the rock in front of it. A line of words slowly appeared. "I am taking Nianma away. Do not reveal my secret for 10 days. Baizé's whole body suddenly trembled. It stared at the rock with its eyes wide open. The Divine Lord. It was the Divine Lord's oracle. God, it was the Divine Lord's oracle. The 8 mythological beasts had been domesticated by the Divine Lord. Naturally, they could recognize his handwriting and style. There was no mistake. Although the line of words only flashed for about 10 seconds and disappeared, it stirred up a strong wave of emotions in Baizé's heart. The Divine Lord was reborn. The Divine Lord was reborn. The Divine Lord was reborn. The huge ecstasy almost burned Baizé's chest. Baizé, who had always been known to be calm among the 8 mythological beasts, almost wanted to scream. It almost floated out of the garden. It bumped into General Manager Heimu. General Manager Heimu heard the noise and came to check. When he saw Baizé, he hurriedly asked, "Where's the young master? Why don't I see him? I seem to have heard some strange movements in the garden just now." Baizé had always carried out the orders of the Divine Lord. Although he was overjoyed, he did not dare to tell the truth. He vaguely answered, "The young master is in isolation. No one is allowed to disturb him these few days." General Manager Heimu was speechless. He was about to ask where the young master was, but Baizé was afraid that he would reveal the news of the Divine Lord's rebirth. It turned around and ran away. It was too happy. Unfortunately, he could not tell anyone such a happy thing. It was so suffocating. General Manager Heimu was a little confused. He scratched his head and wondered what was wrong with this mythological beast. This was the first time he had seen Baizé so happy in recent days. In just 3 days, 12 children in the underworld city had gone missing. In total, 36 children have been lost in the underworld city in the past 10 days. This was definitely not a normal phenomenon. The frequency of the children being lost was simply infuriating. For a time, the Netherworld was in a state of panic, and everyone was in danger. The citizens of Nether City went to the government office to petition, asking the government office of Nether City to solve the case as soon as possible, find the culprit who kidnapped the child, and find the child. The Yamen in Nether City was also having a headache. Even the injured Nether King in the Nether Palace heard about this matter and asked about it personally. He even sent some experts to investigate and sent a group of Nether City's Imperial Guards to patrol the city. The soldiers in the city patrolled day and night. The city gate was also strictly checked for outsiders. The inns, rundown temples, restaurants, these places where guests came and went were searched every day. The entire Nether City was in chaos. Even so, it did not reduce the frequency of children being lost. When Ning Xuema came here again, she keenly sensed the unusual atmosphere in Nether City. There were no longer children running around on the streets. The commoners were all in a hurry. The soldiers of the Netherworld patrolled the streets from time to time. The security was much tighter. Since she wanted to investigate privately, she naturally didn't want to expose her identity. Therefore, she still changed her appearance. This time, she didn't use a spell, but a disguise. Chapter 2190. She disguised herself as a middle-aged woman. Her appearance was neither ugly nor handsome. Her face was as pale as the people of the underworld. Her figure was slightly plump, which was very different from her original appearance. Even if she was thrown into a crowd, she wouldn't be picked out. She strolled around the streets and learned about the general situation of the underworld from the people who were gossiping. On the city walls, on the bulletin boards on the streets, there were reward notices from the government everywhere. The reward was to find the missing child and catch the thief who stole the child. The reward was as high as 50,000 taels. It could be seen that the government had put in a lot of effort to solve the case. The government had set up checkpoints all over the city to check the passers-by. They were especially strict with outsiders. Of course, to an expert like Ning Xiumao, these interrogations were nothing to her. Not to mention interrogating her. Even if they wanted to get close to her, they wouldn't be able to do so. As soon as the soldiers arrived, she would immediately turn invisible. Therefore, even if she didn't have any documents on her, she could still freely wander around the city. Soon, she arrived at the shop that sold the jade dolls. But she saw a strange scene that she couldn't imagine. There was a long queue in front of the white jade doll shop that was originally deserted. There were quite a number of children in the queue, so it was very lively. Ning Xiuma's heart skipped a beat. The aesthetics of the underworld was different from other realms. Most of the children's toys here were very bright and colorful, and the white jade dolls sold in this jade shop were very beautiful in Ning Xiuma's eyes. But in the eyes of the people of the underworld, they were too thin and didn't conform to the aesthetics of the underworld. Otherwise, they wouldn't have sold them so cheaply a few days ago. There weren't many people who came to buy them. It was so deserted in front of the shop. What was going on this time? She asked an old woman next to her. That person was very talkative. Sister-in-law, you still don't know? The dolls sold by this shop have the effect of protecting children. As long as you buy their white jade dolls, your children won't go missing. So now, all the families with children come here to buy white jade dolls. Even those high officials and nobles are no exception. Ning Xiumao frowned slightly. In her subconscious mind, the white jade dolls here were a little strange. They were a little like voodoo dolls. However, Ning Xiumao couldn't find anything on the doll. That was why she came here personally. She wanted to keep an eye on the shop for a few days and find some clues. She didn't expect that the white jade doll would become a guardian doll. Granny, is this white jade doll really that smart? Are all the people who bought the doll fine? Ning Xiumao continued to ask. Yes, that's why everyone is here to buy. How much is his family's baby worth? Ning Xiumao felt that there was something strange going on. That shop's boss is quite strange. It costs 20 copper coins if you bring a child, and 200 taels if you don't. Therefore, everyone brought their children along. Sister-in-law, do you have any children at home? If you do, hurry and buy a few. It's better to be safe. The old woman advised her. Ning Xiumao nodded and answered vaguely. Okay, I'll go and take a look. Sister-in-law, it's better if you bring your child along. I heard that the shop's boss doesn't sell to people who don't bring their children today. The old woman was quite enthusiastic and added on. Ning Xiumao thanked her and walked forward. How could she bring a child along at this time? Anyway, she didn't plan to buy it. She just wanted to go in and take a look. Chapter 2191. Initially, she wanted to skip the queue and use her invisibility spell to go through the wall. However, she did not expect to find a wizardry barrier around the shop. If she did not destroy the wizardry barrier, she would not be able to enter at all. However, if she destroyed the barrier, the person who set it up would be alerted. Then, the effect of her secret visit would be greatly reduced. When she was about to line up, she turned her head and saw a little boy standing at the corner of the street not far away. He was dressed in rags and was looking at the children who had already bought the dolls. Ning Xiumao was interested. She walked over and gently asked, "Little guy, do you want a doll like this too?" The little boy immediately nodded vigorously, but then looked down. "Yes, but I don't have the money." Ning Xiumao reached out her hand to him. "Let's go. I will take you to buy it." Naturally, the little boy would happily agree to this kind of free lunch that fell from the sky. He wanted to put his dirty little paw in Ning Xiumao's hand, but after thinking about it, he ran to the corner of the street. After a while, not only was his face clean, but even his hands were also clean. The little boy was quite handsome after he was clean. He even spoke in a quiet manner. He did not look like a homeless child running around on the street. Instead, he looked like someone from a big family. Every move of his was elegant. The child looked to be about 5 or 6 years old, and he was very sensible. The only drawback was that he was a little skinny and was all skin and bones. When Ning Xiumao saw the child, she thought of little Nianma. Her heart softened, and she simply bought him new clothes to change into. Although the child was a homeless child, he was not as dirty as the ordinary homeless children. There was only a little dust on his body. When Ning Shuima bought him a new set of clothes, his eyes lit up. Ning Shuima asked him to put it on, but the little boy shook his head. I am dirty now. He did not have the heart to dirty the new clothes. This child was extraordinarily sensible. Ning Shuima looked around and found that the place was very secluded. There were not many people around. She raised her hand and pointed at the child. A faint blue light circled around him. Now it is okay. The child felt his entire body turn cold. When he lowered his head to look at himself, he realized that he was even cleaner than when he took a shower. He looked at Ning Shuima with his bright black eyes. Auntie, are you an immortal? Ning Shuima raised her head and patted his head. It's just a little spell. Good girl, go and change. The child nodded heavily and immediately ran to a secluded place to change. A moment later, she came out. She was as beautiful as a fairy child in a painting, looking like a completely different person. As the saying goes, clothes make the man, and Buddha makes the man. Now that the child was wearing such a small robe, he looked completely different from before. Ning Shuima didn't expect that she would be able to find such a treasure just by randomly grabbing him on the street. Her fondness for this child increased a little. She simply led him to a restaurant and had a good meal. The child looked very hungry, but when he ate, he took small bites like a little gentleman. Ning Shuima thought of her son again. She wondered what the little guy was doing now. Was he obediently staying in Mo Palace? She took out the directed audio spell and wanted to talk to her son. When she lowered her head, she saw that the child was looking at her with a pair of clear black and white eyes. One of his little hands was holding the corner of her clothes, as if he was afraid of being abandoned. Ning Shuima's heart couldn't help but be moved. Taking advantage of the situation, she took the child's small hand and secretly examined his chi meridians and bones. Chapter 2192. Her heart skipped a beat. She held the child's little hand and secretly checked his chi. Her eyes lit up. The child's chi was excellent. He was a good candidate for practicing martial arts. If she brought him back to Mo Palace and trained him well, she might be able to cultivate him into an excellent general. Moreover, he was about the same age as little Nianma. He could be little Nianma's playmate. The child was still too lonely in Mo Palace. It'd be better to have a playmate. She secretly calculated in her heart as she led the child to the jade shop while chatting with him. In a few words, she managed to get some information about his past. The child did not come from a rich family. Instead, he came from a declining, scholarly family. His parents died when he was 4 years old. His uncle and aunt took over the family property and drove him out. For the past 2 years, he had been wandering around. He was hungry and full. After he finished talking about his own matters, his little hand carefully pulled on Ning Shuima's lapel. Aunt, can little Chun follow you? I can do anything. I will not eat for free. Chun? Ning Shuima subconsciously understood the word Chun. Which 2 words? Shao as in big, Chun as in dust. Father said that the lives of poor people like us are as cheap as dust. It will be gone with a pat. Little Chun sounded a little sad. What a disappointing name. Ning Shuima pondered for a moment. You will be called Shao Chun from now on. Shao as in daybreak, Chun as in morning. A child like you should be full of vitality like the morning. The child's eyes lit up again. Okay. I will be called Shao Chun from now on. Thank you for giving me a name. Can Shao Chun follow Auntie in the future? Ning Shuima paused for a moment and smiled. I am busy. If you are willing, I will arrange a good place for you. The child's eyes were shining. He pulled Ning Shuima's sleeve even tighter. I am willing. The adult and the child joined the queue to buy the white jade dolls. Ning Shuima paid attention to the children who came out with the dolls. Every child was in high spirits. Although the dolls they were holding were all different, every one of them was extremely beautiful. Ning Shuima had been waiting in line for a while, and she had already seen 20 to 30 children holding their dolls with satisfaction. At the rate he's selling, how many can he sell in a day? This kind of doll was carved with exquisite craftsmanship. Under normal circumstances, it would take at least 3 to 4 days to carve a doll like this. However, this place seemed to be doing wholesale. How many of these dolls did that boss accumulate? Not to mention the wages, just the jade materials alone would cost a few dozen taels of silver. If he sold them like this, wouldn't he go bankrupt? Even his pants. If what he did before was a marketing tactic, then there must be something fishy about him doing business like this now, that it was so popular. There must be something fishy going on. This person did this either because he had too much money at home and was running out of money to do charity, or he had other motives. This shop owner didn't seem like someone with a lot of money. Last time, she smelled a kind of loafer on him. Not only was his shop shabby, but his clothes were also very ordinary. Therefore, the possibility of him running out to burn money was very small. If this was ruled out, then he must have other motives. But what exactly was he after? Anyone who bought the white jade dolls would be fine. It did sound like a protective doll. No wonder the people were rushing like ducks and lining up here. Chapter 2193. However, if so many of them were sold, and the other children were in trouble one after another, only the one who bought the white jade doll was fine. It was quite unusual. Ning Xuema felt bored while waiting in line, so she chatted with a woman beside her. The shop owner's business is really booming. How many of these dolls has he sold these days? The woman liked to gossip. At least a few thousand. It has been so popular for nearly 3 days, and he sells them very fast. Customers are not allowed to pick and choose anymore. The shop owner just casually grabs one, carves the child's birth characters on it, and pays the money. The shop owner doesn't even raise his head. A few thousand white jade dolls. It seemed that the shop owner had stocked up a lot. If it went on like this, all the people in the city would come to buy these dolls. By then, every child would have one. Ning Xuema suddenly quivered and shuddered. She seemed to have figured something out, and her face changed slightly. Maybe the disappearance of the children in the underworld was just a gimmick to lure the people into a trap. If the person behind it was really Luo Jiuchen, she was afraid that he was targeting all the children in the city. Of course, these were all her guesses, and they needed to be verified. She had to enter the shop again and check it out. She had to find out who the shop owner was. What do you want to do in this shop? The Styx River, which had always been turbulent, suddenly calmed down. The Styx River used to be filled with countless ghosts who screamed and howled from time to time. There was no peace at all. Now, it seemed that they had encountered something they were deeply afraid of. They hid themselves and swam slowly in the river. They used to like to swim in and out of the river, but now they all stuck close to the surface of the water, not daring to go to the bottom of the river. They swam as carefully as if there were bombs buried under their feet. There was indeed an uninvited guest at the bottom of the Styx River. This uninvited guest was a white stone, a very inconspicuous white stone. This white stone suddenly appeared at the bottom of the Styx River. When it first appeared, some ghosts floating at the bottom of the river surrounded it to watch the fun. Some of the more courageous ones even stretched out their sharp claws to scratch it. Unexpectedly, before they could touch the stone glowed faintly, and all the ghosts within a radius of 1,000 feet around it disappeared like a puff of smoke. The other ghosts immediately understood that this stone was not to be trifled with, so they all ran away. So the white stone was left alone at the bottom of the dark river. Where are the blood-red crystals you mentioned? The heavenly Tao stone circled around the bottom of the Nether River. Not to mention blood-red crystals, it didn't even see a single red stone. With a belly full of bewilderment, it finally spammed in front of Shun Julie again. Shun Julie was meditating. He didn't even open his eyes when he heard the heavenly Tao stone. He only said a word that almost made the heavenly Tao stone burst with anger. Fine. The heavenly Tao stone was furious. I've already searched the entire bottom of the river. It was extremely sensitive to that kind of crystal. If it was really nearby, it would be impossible for it not to sense it. Shinjuli said indifferently, maybe someone picked it up. Heavenly Tao stone. it was still unwilling to give up. Didn't you say that there was a chicken blood-red crystal mine at the bottom of the Nether River? How could it be picked up by someone? Shun Julie said calmly. I only said that there was a chicken blood-red crystal mine there. I didn't mention the mine. Chapter 2194. The Heavenly Tao Stone almost fainted. Are you saying that there used to be a piece of blood-red crystal here? Shun Julie corrected it. Not one, but two. There used to be two. The Heavenly Tao Stone still had a little flame of hope in its heart. When did you see it? Shun Julie pondered for a while. About 53,000 years ago, the Heavenly Tao Stone was speechless. It had the urge to slap his face with its ant. The blood-red crystal was so rare. Even in the lava of a volcano, someone could find it and take it away. 50,000 years ago. Not to mention that there used to be two of such crystals here. Even if there was a crystal mine, it would have been dug out in 50,000 years. The Heavenly Tao Stone felt that it had been fooled. It felt that its dignity had been challenged. So it immediately wrote, there must be energy stones around me for me to absorb. Not here. Let's go back. It was about to cast a spell, but Shun Julie stopped it with one sentence. I know how to make the blood-red crystal. It can help you make it quickly, and you don't have to look for it anymore. The Heavenly Tao Stone's little heart trembled. What method? Tell me. Shun Julie shook his hand and threw the one-line contact talisman to the stone. Check her exact location again. The talisman above the Heavenly Tao Stone's head was speechless. It knew that if it wanted to know the method, it had to follow Shun Julie's instructions. It was still a little unconvinced. Do you really have such a method? Don't tell me you're trying to fool me again. Shun Julie looked down and said indifferently, when have I ever lied? Well, it seemed that this person had never lied before. However, it would be very difficult to get the method out of him. What do you want to tell me the method? The Heavenly Tao Stone decided to negotiate first. Be obedient. He said two words again. That was too vague. How long? There should be a time limit, right? 5 days. The Heavenly Tao Stone wanted to bargain again. 5 days is too long. How about 3 days? 6 days. Shun Julie didn't reduce the price, but instead increased it. He added, if you continue to bargain, then it will be 10 days. I know that you can ignore my threat and return to the underground of Mo Palace. I can't even stop you. But you have to remember one thing. If you go back like this, I will never tell you this secret technique. The Heavenly Tao Stone. Its escape route was blocked by Shun Julie's words. It hung its head dejectedly. 5 days it is. You can't go back on your word. After completing the conditions, it began to detect the location of Ningxiuma. The crystal pillar changed colors for a moment before a line of words appeared. She is at the entrance of a shop in Nether City. It even gave the standard coordinates. Of course, only Shun Julie could understand the words that were written on it. As for little Nianma, he could only see a bunch of characters that he could not understand flashing around. It looked so grand and majestic. Shun Julie got the answer he wanted, so he stopped talking. He raised his hand, and a white light shone on the crystal ball in front of him. The crystal ball was flashing with colorful lights. A moment later, a picture finally appeared on the crystal ball. The picture was very similar to a camera. The camera was shaking from far to near. In the picture, many people of the underworld could be seen queuing in a jade shop. There were men and women, old and young. Chapter 2195. At the entrance of the shop, there were people holding children and carrying white jade dolls out from time to time. The image paused on the white jade dolls. Little Nianma exclaimed, "This is the doll. This is the doll on my mother's bed. It turns out that my mother bought it from here." Shun Julie's gaze also fell on the white jade dolls. He looked very carefully and could even see the feet from the top of the head. Although he remained calm on the surface, there was a flash of surprise in his eyes. He turned the image around and looked at a few white jade dolls. These dolls were of different shapes, and each doll had a different appearance. It was as if the babies in the human world were all independent of each other. No matter how skilled a jade carving master was, he had his own carving habits, especially when it came to carving figures. Even if the figures he carved were in different positions, their appearance was generally the same. At first glance, it was obvious that they were the work of the same person. On the other hand, the dolls sold here all looked the same and were not similar at all. Could it be that the dolls sold in this shop were the masterpieces of many jade carving masters? Shunjili turned the image around a few times to observe the white jade dolls in the arms of a few children. His frown deepened. Not only could he see images in the crystal ball, but he could also hear sounds. He had already heard the price of the white jade dolls. It was 20 coins, which was not even enough to buy a doll's foot. Shunjili looked at the white jade dolls from head to toe without saying a word. Naturally, the heavenly lost stone also saw it. These dolls are so cheap. The material is from the snow jade, right? A piece as big as a fist is worth 100 taels. This doll is as big as 2 fists, and the jade material is worth 200 taels, let alone the cost of labor. He is only selling it for 20 coins. Is this person's brain kicked by a donkey? Is there water in it? What is wrong with him? Shunjili only answered, there must be a demon behind this. The heavenly lost stone was puzzled. The problem is that I can't see anything strange about the white jade dolls. Snow jade is not a magic jade. It is healthy to wear it often. I can't see any demon aura on it. It is just an ordinary jade doll. I think each of them is quite beautiful. She added, although they're not as cute as you are now, they're still very good looking. No wonder the little girl liked it so much that she bought 2 at once and put them under her blanket. She didn't even give her son a doll, only gave him a doll. Speaking of which, the little girl didn't come here to investigate Luo Jiochin, but to buy 2 more dolls? Ha ha ha. It seems that she really likes children. Is it not enough to have little Nianma? She wants to buy a few more pieces of jade for her collection. Ever since the heavenly lost stone let go of its temper, it had become exceptionally talkative. It always liked to speculate endlessly. Shunjili was too lazy to talk to it. He just let it do whatever it wanted. She seemed to really like children. For the sake of children, she had suffered so much. For the sake of children, she had become obsessed. For the sake of children, she had completely broken off with him. For the sake of children, she had not hesitated to travel through thousands of years to rewrite history. For the sake of a child, she was willing to abandon him from 50,000 years ago. She was indeed desperate for the sake of her child. He saw with his own eyes how much she cared about the child and how nervous she was she could lose him. But she couldn't lose the child without him by her side. She seemed to be living a wonderful life, as if everything was fine as long as she had a child. Shunjili realized that he seemed to be jealous of his son. Chapter 2196. There seemed to be a barrier in his heart. Usually, he did not think about it, but now that he thought about it, the barrier was quite high. Nianma, does your mother often talk about your father in front of you? Shunjili suddenly had the interest to chat with his son. Nianma's eyes were now fixed on the crystal ball. He was looking for his mother, but unfortunately, he could not find her. When he was about to search from the beginning to the end, he suddenly heard Shunjili's question. He did not think much and casually answered, almost never. Shunjili was speechless. He found that the barrier in his heart had increased a little. If 2 people who loved each other knew that they were going to die, they would want the other party to forget about them completely so that they could start a new life. However, if they came back from the dead and found that their lover had really forgotten about them or did not care about them at all, the feeling in their heart would certainly not be good. Shunjili was in such a situation. Of course, Ning Xiuma did not forget about him. Her attention was on the child. If there were a few positions in her heart, her son would definitely be the first, and he would probably be ranked after his son. Of course, this thought only flashed in Shunjili's mind and disappeared quickly. He was the Divine Lord, so why would he care about these trivial things? He was not jealous of his son. The reason why he did not go out to see her and did not let her know that he was still alive was because he did not want her to see him as a child again. He did not want Luo Jiochin to find out about his existence before he recovered. It must be because of these 2 reasons and not because of other reasons. She liked children, right? It did not matter. He would give her many children in the future. She would like to have more than enough. Shinjuli did not want to analyze his own thoughts anymore. After enough reasons, he turned his attention back to the crystal ball. He looked at it one by one, but he did not see Ning Shiwama's shadow. However, since the Heavenly Law Stone detected her presence, she must be there. The Heavenly Law Stone still had the ability to detect her presence. Could it be that she used an ordinary disguise? Instead of just using a spell to block people's eyes, if he were to use spells, the crystal ball would be able to shield him from spells. Using spells to disguise himself was useless on this planet. The crystal ball would only show him his original appearance. Only by using the transfiguration technique would he be able to avoid being seen through by a spellmaster. Where is my mother? Is my mother here? Shin Yinma looked around the crystal ball, but he could not find the person he was looking for. Shinjuli did not say anything. He let the camera slowly rotate and suddenly fixed on a spot. There was a woman with a pale face and a rather plump body. She was bending over and talking to a child. Shin Yinma also noticed the woman, but he did not recognize her. He raised his hand and shook Shinjuli's arm. Hey, don't just look at this. Look elsewhere. Shinjuli said indifferently. If I'm not mistaken, this is your mother. She's disguised herself. Ah. Shin Yinma's slightly open mouth could almost stuff a pigeon egg into it. He took a closer look at the woman and could not help but raise his hand to rub his eyes. But this person does not look like my mother at all. My mother is 1,000 times prettier than her. No, 10,000 times prettier. This person has a big waist. Shinjuli was speechless. She's disguised herself. She was willing to destroy her image for the sake of investigating the case. Chapter 2197. Shin Yinma stared at the woman for a long time and could barely recognize his mother's face. He murmured, "Mother's disguise is amazing." Then, he looked at Shinjuli and felt even more strange. This is strange. How do you know my mother? How can you recognize her when she is in disguise? Did you know my mother? It was more than just knowing her. As for being able to recognize her, how could he not recognize the woman who had been with him for 3 lifetimes? Even if she was burned to ashes, he would still be able to recognize her bones. However, he could not tell his son the truth. So Shinjuli said mysteriously, "I am an immortal." The subtext was that immortals knew everything. After all, Shin Yinma was still young. Shinjuli only needed to say one sentence to dispel his doubts. Sure enough, he did not dwell on the question anymore. His attention was soon attracted by other things. He saw his mother talking to another child in the crystal ball. She even held the child's hand to buy new clothes for him and went to a restaurant. Little Nyenma's little face was getting darker, and his little mouth was tighter. These days, his mother had been very busy. It had been a long time since she held his hand to go shopping. Now, she was holding another child's hand. Shinjuli's eyes also fell on the child who was holding Ning Shiwama's hand. He had never shown his emotions. Even when he looked like a little boy, he did not show any emotion. No one could guess what was on his mind at the moment. The Heavenly Law Stone was gloating. It seems that she really likes children. She can find one on the street. Shinjuli did not speak. His eyes were still on the child. The Heavenly Law Stone also looked at the child for a moment. Is the child okay? I can't see anything wrong with him. He is just an ordinary child. The more little Nyenma looked at the child, the more impatient he became. He stood up and said, "I want to find my mother." He wanted his mother to hold his hand and not the child's hand. Shinjili did not even look at his jealous son. He only said, "A real man should plan before acting. Being impulsive is the behavior of a reckless man." Little Nyenma looked at him with his eyes wide open. "Do you mean that it is inappropriate for me to go out now?" Shinjuli said leisurely, "If you go out now, you'll disrupt her plan. Let's wait and see." Little Nyenma was not convinced. But she is holding the child. Children should always be protected. Any child would not be happy to see their parents holding another child. Although little Nyenma was the son of the celestial god and the great devil, he was no exception. Don't worry, he won't steal your position. Your mother puts you first, and no one can replace you. Shunjuli seemed to be comforting his son. A line of words appeared on the heavenly Tao stone. Why do I feel like you're jealous? You aren't jealous of your son, are you? Shunjuli couldn't be bothered with the heavenly Tao stone, the emperor of truth. He continued to use the crystal to monitor Ning Xiuma's situation. While he was looking, he suddenly realized that little Nianma was looking at him strangely. Why are you looking at me? Little Nianma blurted out. I suddenly realized that you are a little like my father. It was earth-shattering. After a row of exclamation marks appeared on the heavenly Tao stone, another sentence appeared. Amazing. He recognized you. He can still recognize you even when you look like this. Shunjuli's expression did not change. He looked at his son with a faint smile. Huh? Little Nianma scratched his head. You look a little like my father, and you have the same temper. When you talked to me just now, you looked even more like him. Chapter 2198. Shunjuli's expression did not change. He even smiled and said, It seems like we're destined to be together. Since you feel that I am your father, you can just call me father. Although he did not want to acknowledge his son for the time being, he did not feel comfortable being fed by the little guy all the time. It was not a bad idea to take the opportunity to persuade him to call him father. Little Nianma glared at him. You are taking advantage of me. We are about the same age. We're good friends. Good brothers. Shunjuli was speechless. The heavenly law stone laughed. Ha ha ha. Good brothers. Shunjuli had an illusion that he had shot himself in the foot. He did not want to talk to his rebellious son anymore. He turned his eyes back to the crystal ball and saw Ning Xiuma holding the hand of the child named Xiaochun, finally walking into the shop. The shop was still the same. The layout inside was still the same. Even the black rafters on the roof were still there. The white jade dolls on the shelves were dazzling. It was no different from the last time Ning Xiuma was here. As for the shop owner, he was still the same person. Although the business was booming, he still looked as if someone owed him 8 million taels of silver. After selling so many dolls, it was obvious that he was like an assembly line. Ning Xiuma brought the child in. He held a white jade doll in one hand and a carving knife in the other. Without even lifting his head, he asked, birth date and 8 characters. Ning Xiuma laughed. Oh, you have so many dolls here. Let's choose one ourselves. You can't choose. The man did not have any intention to bend the rules. Tell me the child's birth characters. His voice was harsh. It seemed that if Ning Xiuma did not tell him, he would chase Ning Xiuma and her son out. Why are you so fierce when doing business? There are so many dolls. You should at least choose one that suits your eyes, right? Ning Xiuma did not care about his attitude and began to walk in front of the shelves. The father and son who had been watching all this through the crystal ball also took the opportunity to see the layout of the shop. And mother brought back those 2 dolls. Why are there 2 identical dolls on the shelf? Little Nianma pointed at the 2 dolls on the shelf. Shunjuli's gaze also fell on the 2 dolls. Sure enough, one was a red doo-doo while the other was a blue doo-doo. Both of them were full of life. He asked little Nianma, Is it really the same? Little Nianma nodded. Yes, I've studied those 2 dolls, and I remember them very clearly. Their expressions and movements are exactly the same. Shunjuli narrowed his eyes and spat out 3 words, rebirth technique. Little Nianma was confused. Huh? Shunjuli explained, this is a very ancient evil technique. The person who performed the technique first used a few fetuses as the demon fetus to refine this thing that looks like white jade. Once this thing is successfully refined, it will be inexhaustible. He then used this thing to carve the voodoo dolls. Because the fetuses are the purest things in the world, the white jade refined from them does not have any evil aura. It can even absorb the evil aura and absorb the evil aura from the original voodoo dolls into its stomach. No matter how brilliant the gods are, they will not be able to detect the evil aura in it. Little Nianma widened his eyes and listened to the knowledge that Gu Shijio shared with him. The white jade refined from a fetus can be carved into the shape of 100 dolls. There are thousands of different dolls here, which proves that there should be more than 10 fetuses used to refine the demon fetus. Once he has refined enough, he can duplicate these dolls in something called the mother and son urn. Chapter 2199. Duplicate? Isn't the mother and child urn like a treasure bowl? If you put one in, you can take out countless others? Little Nianma, try to understand. Shun Jili nodded. The nature is similar. As long as the dolls made from the bones of the primordial fetus are not taken out, there will be an endless supply of these dolls. So, the demon fetus made from the 10 fetuses is the mother doll, and the rest of the child dolls? The Heavenly Lost Stone joined in the discussion. Yes, the dolls that he sells are all child dolls. These child dolls are evil. Even if you hold it in your hand, you will not be able to see anything. However, it will gradually control the mind of the children whose birth characters are written on it. The person who made this kind of doll can use the mother doll to control these children and make them work for him. The person who made this magic is trying to control the rhythm of the children in the city. The Heavenly Lost Stone could not figure it out. If the person behind this is Luo Jiochin, why does he want to control so many children? Does he want them to fight for him? What can a group of children do? Shun Jili interrupted it and said, he does not want to control these children. He wants to do something to them. If I am not wrong, he wants to use the lives of all the children in the city to make something. The Heavenly Lost Stone was speechless. That bastard is so evil. Shun Jili closed his eyes slightly and said coldly, 50,000 years ago, he did not want to be possessed by the devil, so he dared to encourage Miao Fan to make the sorcery. Now that he is completely possessed by the devil, he can do whatever he wants. Miao Fan's foundation is weak, but he still created such a disaster. Now that he is possessed by the devil, once he succeeds, I am afraid. I am afraid that you're no match for him, right? The Heavenly Lost Stone's heart sank. 50,000 years ago, Luo Jiochin's kung fu was almost the same as Shun Jili's. Shun Jili could not control Luo Jiochin in one fell swoop. Now, although Shun Jili was reborn, he was still in the form of a child. It was unknown whether his kung fu could be restored immediately after he returned to his human form. Even if it could be restored, it could only be restored to the previous level. Luo Jiochin's kung fu had improved a lot. If he practiced evil kung fu unscrupulously, it was very likely that he could improve his kung fu by 4 or 5 times in a short time. At that time, even if Shun Jili recovered to his original level, he would still be no match for him. Once such a person entered the demonic path, he would be a huge threat. The Heavenly Tao Stone also felt that the future was not optimistic. Looks like things aren't looking good. The Heavenly Tao Stone commented. What did you see? Shun Jili asked. The Stone of Heavenly Axiom should know the past and the future, especially the future. Regardless of whether it was good or bad, the Stone of Heavenly Axiom would not allow anyone to interfere with the matters of the Heavenly Axiom. The Heavenly Tao Stone paused for a moment and replied embarrassedly, back then, in order to let that little girl break the enchantment to help you, I used up all my spiritual power and have been cultivating. After cultivating for so long, I only recovered half of my vitality, but I still have to resurrect you. The half of my vitality that I recovered was all for your resurrection. Now, I can no longer sense the true intentions of the Heavenly Tao. Others did not know the ins and outs of the Heavenly Tao Stone, but Shun Jili knew it very well. The Stone of Heavenly Tao actually represented the mouthpiece of the Heavenly Tao. When someone violated the Heavenly Tao, the Stone of Heavenly Tao would show the Heavenly Tao's decree to Shun Jili, the guardian of the Heavenly Tao, and then let him set things right. Chapter 2200. Now that the Heavenly Lost Stone did not have enough power, it could not sense the heavenly laws. Naturally, it could not predict the future. The more the Heavenly Lost Stone thought about it, the more pessimistic it became. Are we going to be destroyed again? If we allow Luo Jiochin to grow, I am afraid that he will treat all 6 worlds as his toys. Shin July replied calmly, "Do you think I am dead?" The heavenly law stone answered, "I am not trying to discourage you, but if he succeeds in practicing the evil art, you will not be able to defeat him." Shin July replied calmly, "Then let's not let him succeed. How can we stop him?" The heavenly law stone did not know where to start. Look at these people. He has sold at least a few thousand of these voodoo dolls. Shin July narrowed his eyes and said, "There's only one way. We have to destroy this shop and the mother's son earn." Just as he said this, he heard a series of crashing sounds coming from the crystal. Little Nianmo, who had been staring at the crystal, shouted, "Mother is so aggressive. Destroy his shop." Shin July was speechless. His eyes flashed with a flash of light. Although his Suomo did not know the origin of the voodoo dolls, she had the same idea as him. What a smart girl. Ning Suomo was indeed destroying the shop. The reason was that the shop owner did not allow her to choose the dolls and even chased her out. However, she insisted on choosing the dolls. When she was chased out, she was furious. How can you not allow people to choose the dolls? This is so annoying. I'm going to destroy this place. Therefore, she did not wait for the shop owner to respond. She picked up a stick from nowhere and attacked the wooden shelf with it. Her strength was not the strength of an ordinary person. Her movements were so fast that the shop owner did not have time to react. When the shop owner came to stop her, the white jade dolls on the shelf had already fallen to the ground like rain and were smashed into pieces. Xiaoqun curled up in a corner, biting her finger as she stared with her mouth agape. The shop owner rushed over to stop her, but Ning Suomo seemed to be in the mood to fight. She waved the stick in her hand like Sun Wukong's golden cudgel. Not only did she destroy all the dolls in the shop, even the shop owner who tried to stop her was hit several times. By the time the people outside heard the commotion inside and rushed in to stop them, there was not a single complete white jade doll left in the store. The citizens of Nether City had already treated the shop owner as the only straw that could save the lives of their dolls. Seeing this scene, those who had yet to buy their dolls were naturally enraged and rushed forward to capture Ning Suomo. Those people were just ordinary people. Although they had some strength, wanting to capture Ning Suomo was just a fool's dream. Ning Suomo dodged left and right inside the store, rampaging about. After a short moment, she seemed to be in a panic and ran into the store's inner room. The interior of the store was very simple. There was a large coffin for the owner to sleep in, as well as a few tables and chairs. The place was also extremely cramped. Some of the angry citizens of Nether City also rushed in and swore to catch this troublemaker and send her to the officials. The whole jade store was in chaos. Ning Xuemo was a self-destructive system. Wherever she went, she would smash the place. The sound of crashing was endless. The shop owner naturally chased after her. "Stop it! Stop it! Hey, stop it!" Shen Yinma could not help but feel excited. Great! Mother is so cool. Such a strange store should be destroyed. You're tuning in to the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.